So how did Fa started? And one of the story goes is that around 100 kilometers south of Hanoi, when French were coming in, so there were these French workers coming in, and they were building this whole railway lines and all of those things. And French, because they were consuming beef, right? They used to discard bones and all. So the
Okay.
local people used those to create the broth,
Oh
right?
my
And then
God.
they were sort of selling this. So imagine in current times, the small guy on a cycle selling something, right? So he just
Yeah.
goes from one place to other with a very small sort of a basket or a box on the back of a cycle, and just selling those things, right? And then people are buying there, right? Who are these people who are
Hmm.
buying? They're the people who just work around this area. So that's where the local Vietnamese started selling it, right? And then from there it started becoming more popular. It came to Hanoi, of course, and places across the country, right? So that's how it started off, right? That's the beginning, and that's the beginning for a lot of food out there. And
Hmm.
Argentina has been quite big on meat again, right? So they have these barbecues, so it's called asado. It's again like a family thing for them, right? So they will have these whole, the whole weekend rituals of asado. So the whole
Acha.
family and friends will gather, and then वो barbecue लगा के, and they will roasting meat on it and drinking, and
Oh,
everybody
what
having.
fun.
Yeah, amazing. And it goes throughout the day, because and that's another thing from a cultural standpoint, because they live life in some way. They will be, weekend will start Sunday morning पे ये Saturday में शुरू हो जाएगा उनका सुबह से barbecue, and then the entire day it goes out, like they will be
क्या बात है, क्या
meat
बात
on
है.
it, and then drinking, and then enjoying and chatting, and then again you know
It's a
will-
it's a real community
yeah,
living
and
wala
again
day.
the barbecue will restart, and again they will do it. So there's a lot of focus there, and hence take him on.
Have you ever taken a bite of something so incredible that it instantly transports you to another place, probably another time? Maybe a bowl of steaming hot pho from the streets of Hanoi, or a plate of fragrant biryani carrying the echoes of an ancient spice route. Well, food isn't just about taste, it's history, culture, tradition, all wrapped up in a single bite. Now imagine traveling the world not just to eat, but to truly understand the soul of a place through its food. My guest today does just that. Welcome to this episode of Misadventures of a Sneaker. I'm your host, Revati, and today we have with us Suhail Khan. Suhail is the kind of guy who believes that the best way to know a country is through its kitchen. Whether it's sipping on the best Ethiopian coffee prepared with utmost precision, sharing a slow cooked zarb under the Jordanian sky, or tracing unexpected food linkages between cultures. Suhail's travels revolve around the magic of meals and the stories that they hold. In this episode, we take a deep dive into the world of food across continents, across history, and across cultures. So, if you love a good meal with an even better story, you're in for a treat. But before we start, let's take a quick little break. Hey, do you know we write a travel theme newsletter every fortnight? Yep. And in each newsletter, we write about different destinations and travel experiences from around the world. Well, you can choose your next travel destination right from our newsletter. And we also have a service of curating travel itineraries personalized just for you. Head over to misadventuresofasneaker.substack.com or contact us on Instagram and we'll plan your vacation for you. You will find all our links in the show notes. And now, grab a snack, because trust me, you'll really need one. And let's dig in. So, here, welcome to the podcast. This is Misadventures of a Sneaker, a travel podcast where we talk about all happy things in life. Bole to, about travel and vacations and everything around that. And just to let our listeners know, Suhail and I have a common friend, Sharik. And Sharik's been on our podcast earlier talking about his multiple trips to South America. And in that episode, Sharik mentioned traveling with his friend Suhail. So, Suhail, you have made an appearance in our podcast even before coming today.
Thank you. Thanks for that intro of an intro. So yeah, really looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. So Sharik has separately told me some grand things about you, like you're a history buff, a food lover, a coffee connoisseur. So I'm really curious. And you know what? From the many episodes that I have recorded earlier, I often see a trend where travel styles or travel interest of a person starts from somewhere in their childhood. For example, I remember one guest talking about their different Tintin comic explorations and how that kind of triggered his travel interest. Another one said, that he and his family used to go hiking up to Vaishno Devi every year. And probably that's where his love for hiking kind of started. So tell us about one of your earliest travel memories that kind of have been a reason why you enjoy traveling so much even now.
Yeah. So I think for me it was uh, different from
Hmm.
how you think about it, that somebody who has had that experience as a young kid, and maybe have gone to a place with parents or family, or have explored something, and that how it started.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually the opposite, right? I mean, when I was a kid, when I was and family, my parents, my siblings, did used to go to our relatives,
Yeah.
to our mamas and all, typically. So we were I
Nani ke ghar, dadi ke ghar, you go to your grandparents'
exactly,
house,
yeah, yeah.
aunt's house
So
and all. Yeah.
yeah, so we used to stay in Agra. That's where I did my schooling from. But we had our relatives in Delhi, so it was more like an Agra Delhi trip predominantly, right? Nothing beyond that. And honestly, I wasn't someone who initially liked traveling, in a way, right? I was more like, oh, slightly, scared. Oh, you have to wake up super early in the morning,
Oh, I still
go
hate
get
that part.
yeah, go get ready. What if you miss the train? What if something happens, or you miss some stuff and all of that? So always, those sort of things were there. So I never thought about, honestly, never imagined that I could travel, or it's something which I would uh, love doing, right? And it all started very late in life, right? Post MBA, because earlier you never really had that much money to sort
Correct.
of
That's
travel and
true.
explore your own, right? Especially outside of India. So
Mm-hmm.
that was part. But once started earning, getting some money which you can save and then travel. And then when I started doing that, and booked that trip after much thinking, that you just go out and just you see and explore the world and meet different people, see different things, just the whole feeling of that you are in a different time and space, so as to say, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
architecture is different, the people look different, the food looks different, the air is different,
Yes,
smell is
absolutely.
different. And I think that's where it stuck, right? That's where it, oh, this is amazing, this is nice, now I should do more of it. And sometimes it also happens that you have a hobby or an activity or something that you start doing, right? You really enjoy it, but after a while you sort of either get bored of it, or you don't keep have the same level of enthusiasm for that. It never happened for travel. Once I started it, there was no going back. And it's like, uh, and with all passing years and months, it's more like, I want to explore more, want to sort of travel more, right? And with travel, it's like, the more you travel, the less you have traveled. So
Oh
so
my God, it is such a nice quote. Oh, I'm
yeah.
going to use it for something. Huh?
So yeah, and I think that's where it started. So I would say almost a decade of traveling, both within India, outside of India as well. Difficult to take time because of the work and busy schedules, but I had to make sure that whenever I have leaves, or I can take out some time, it is for this purpose specifically, right? I would rather save time not doing it, spending my leaves or holidays, rather than accumulating them, so that I can spend a week or two outside. And I think that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. I'm the same. I never take sick leaves and all that. I mean, I won't
Yeah,
even,
same.
it's
Yeah,
not even like the work from home. Sick leave ही नहीं चाहिए. I'll cough and I'll have fever and I'll go to work because I cannot waste that one day
yeah, exactly.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thing. So I'm
Yeah.
very much that kind. So
Hmm.
in this starting late traveling funda as well, what is the earliest one of the first or second phenomenal that, like, ऐसा भी जगह होता है in the world kind of thing that happened to you?
Yeah, so see, my first sort of international trip was immediately post MBA, when we had gotten our placements done, and we were
Yeah.
waiting for convocation to happen. So there was a month gap there. I was in Calcutta, and so most of the people between this 1 month, they actually go home, come back for
Yeah.
convocation with their
Or
families.
Calcutta folks will go to Sikkim. All
Calcutta mostly,
Calcutta.
yeah, they might go to Sikkim. Most of the
I
people end
know.
up going on because there is good 15-20 day period.
Yeah.
So we were a bunch of 5 friends. wingies, as we call them, because we used to stay next to each other in hostel.
Yeah.
And we decided not to go. We were like, okay, let's just travel. And I was excited because I had recently gotten my passport made, and like, okay, let's use it. Ek stamp to lagvate hain usko.
Yeah, very important.
And from Calcutta, and obviously being a boys trip, 5 6 guys going.
Thailand,
Exactly. So very easy to guess, right? So that was the thing. Right? Direct Air Asia flight, very cheap, we can afford,
very cheap.
and just reach there in 2.5 hours, and then just explore and come back. So that was like first time me stepping out of the country. When there, of course, that whole thing that I was speaking about, that just the feeling of being in a different place altogether, right? I mean, landing in Bangkok, just exploring,
Yeah.
places there, trying out some food in that, uh, Khawsar market, if I remember it correctly. And then from there we went to an island, Koh Samui,
Yeah.
pro scooties there, beautiful views, right? You have the whole sea by the side, and you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
walking around and just
It's
sit.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It was amazing. So that was the first sort of impression. That's where I thought, okay, this is something which can be done, right? And then from there, then started planning trips. Okay, where can we go? Where when can we travel? What all can we explore? And I think post that, the first trip, for example, after that, which I did. This is
Hmm.
talk about 2013 now, and in March we went to Thailand, came back, did our convocation, then started our jobs. Had to pay off education loans, bunch of other things. You suddenly
I know. Life takes over.
life takes over. You suddenly realize, okay, you become an adult now, and you have to, now you have money, but you also have a lot of things to spend that money on, right? So you have to figure that out. And then November that year is when we planned a trip and went to Jordan, and I think that was the
Ah,
trip, yeah.
wow. Your first ever proper planned trip. I mean, Thailand,
Planned trip,
yeah,
yes,
thing was, it
exactly,
was
planned.
Jordan.
Yes, so Jordan, and of course went with Sharik, so we started traveling together, and so that's the whole aspect of going to uh, a country, and Jordan for various reasons, right? One, of course, the whole factor of that exotic destination, people haven't been there a lot, good to see, and then a lot of things to do, right? I mean, you have one of the natural seven wonders of the world. Like you have these sort of something like a Petra. You have a Dead Sea, where you can float, and you have beautiful cities. You have that whole desert experience where you can just camp,
Yeah.
in the middle of a desert for 2 nights. Those are the things that we sort of thought about, planned, and then went on travel. So yeah, that's where it started. Started, and then yeah, it's been like that since.
Oh my God. So I went to Jordan many years after my travel bug came around, but it's still, I mean, from all the 20-30 episodes that we've done on the podcast, I think Jordan stories are repeated the most. The Wadi Rum night experience, staying in that desert, uh,
Yeah,
believable.
yeah.
Of course, floating on the Dead Sea is something else. So I'm a crazy water person. Okay, if
Hmm.
tell me water, I'll go and jump in, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And you just go and buoyancy, and you're just floating. It's really weightless. We did all that. So we took a small magazine because we
Hmm.
have to do all
Yeah.
those, tab to Instagram tha waise, but it was
Hmm.
not that crazy and all that. But we have seen pictures, right? So we have to read a newspaper when you're,
Hmm.
floating on Dead Sea like that. So
Hmm.
all those silly things, stunning experience. So
Yeah.
Jordan really is a feast to the eyes, history, of course. And what food, man. I'm a vegetarian, and then still I am saying we were three of us who went, two vegetarians and one meat eater.
Yeah.
That guy was flying the entire time. Okay. It was, and we had gone during Ramadan time. It was exactly
Hmm.
that 1 week of Ramadan that, I mean, we
Hmm.
were there when the Ramadan was there, when it was ending. So one, the markets were bustling, the lights that were up, and the festivities, and the food that was on display. I mean, I think I had the best dry fruits ever in my life in Jordan. The best. I mean, name it, walnuts and almonds and figs and all of it. The best dry fruits, the best fruits as well. So the Jordan, the fruits in Jordan. I mean, I have a picture with a watermelon, which I'll put up on our blog for the listeners to see. Unbelievable. I don't know. Maybe it was like 20 kgs, or I don't
Hmm.
know, the size of a 9-month-old or 10-month-old baby, maybe I would say. It's that huge,
Hmm.
massive. Lifting on was so tough. The fruits in Jordan, unbelievable. And of course, all your pita platters and your
Yeah.
falafels and then your desserts there. Oh, I loved Jordan.
No, I think perhaps one of the reason, and when I went there, it was all of that pre-Instagram era. I think what perhaps works for Jordan, first and foremost, of course, the people, right? I mean, the most amazing people that at least I've met,
Mm,
across travels. Great. I mean, they're always smiling. They're always ready to help you. It's a small country relatively, but it still has a lot to offer, and I
yeah,
think it also helps, right? Because traveling within the country is not that difficult, right? I mean, you just take a car and everything is probably at 3 and 4 hours away, and they have
that's true.
amazing, they have this like King's Highway, and they have the multiple, sort of, great, roads that you can do a road trip. You can go to an amazing, historical and this, gorgeous thing called Petra.
Oh,
You can
Petra.
go to a desert. You can, float in a, in a sea. You can go to Amman, which is a great city. Loved being in Amman and the whole older side of it, and of course, great food. So I think in that small space, it has so much to offer. I don't know how it would have changed over a period of time, but at least when I went there, it was such an amazing, because also, and perhaps to a lot of places about 9-10 years ago, when people were not traveling that much, right? When it was not so much popular, for example, it was a sort of this sense also that when you go there and you tell somebody, oh, I'm from India, they just love you. They're like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
singing songs of Bollywood, because that's how they identify, right?
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
from India, it's an amazing place, lovely people. So you also feel very welcomed, and that adds to the experience, right? And everything just sort of multiplies. So that's why I think, and for me also, being one of the earliest trips,
Hmm.
it has a special place in memory.
So, which actor were you compared to? So, Jordan always they call out. So, I was Aishwarya Rai, Preeti Zinta, and all that. In me, I was just flying somewhere else.
No, I don't think they
No.
compared me to any actor. Maybe I wasn't, they know, okay, itna bhi nahi karte hain, not, let's not just exaggerate so much. But they knew quite a few, right? And somebody knew,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Sunil Shetty also there.
Oh, wow.
They were like fan of Shahid Kapoor, Sunil Shetty, all of those were like amazing. So I'm
I think
just,
the girls get more of those,
yeah,
like you are that particular actress. I remember one in one of the episodes. I think the episode on Egypt, the guests told that they were standing on the station and the train was they were on a train station. They were boarding a train to Luxor or something, and they were standing on the station. There was someone at the in the train, at the door of the train, and they saw these guys and they screamed from the train, Indians. So this guy said yes, and in the train, the guy stood up and he danced Khai Ke Pan Banaras Wala while singing it, a local.
wow,
And they said it was unbelievable. First, he was staring at him. I mean, are you serious? He was just standing and dancing in a train. They're not vendors or something trying to impress you or get your attention. So, some like you said, seeing Indians is still was still exotic at one point in many of these countries.
yeah.
So, such kind of experience is always so fun. Wonderful. Then, through all your early travel and Thailand and Jordan and all that, where did the were you always a foodie or did this develop over time? And for our listeners, why I ask this is so when I first spoke to Suhail, I was wondering, which place he would be talking about on our podcast. He said, no, I cannot choose one country. I prefer a theme, and I'm really fond of exploring food and beverages as I travel because that really brings out the local um, the local flavor of a place, the kind of conversation that you have either in a restaurant or in a chai shop or in a place like this, the kind of people you meet, all of it is way richer. And so I would love to have a conversation on foods of the world and beverages of the world and coffees of the world, because I'm quite a foodie. And that's where my question comes around as to this food connoisseur. How did it start with you?
First of all, I want to start off with that. I'm not a food connoisseur by any chance, right? I mean, I just like eating. I probably would not be the one who would be too much into delve and typing, okay, how did this, what are
Which
the
masala?
flavors and which masala and all. It's just that, I like food. I like trying food. And I think that goes very well hand in hand with the travel itself, right? Because one of the main purpose and reason, that inherent curiosity about knowing a culture or a place, or you just want to go there just to see how people live there, right? I mean, apart amongst other things. And I think food forms a very important part of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, it's been said that if you want to really know somebody, just break a bread with them, right? That's how you do it, right? I mean, you just go into any cafe. I mean, and we do it, right? I mean, sometimes even if we say that we're not really a foodie, or we don't like food as much, or we don't travel food, but it is so much part of the experience, right? Even if you're just sitting at a cafe or a restaurant just watching people passing by,
Oh,
that's
I
that's
love people watching.
exactly right. And that's experience, right? I mean, what's the best part, right? You just go to a cafe outdoor or sit by the window,
Yeah.
have a coffee or a small meal and just observe people around you, right? And how is it happening? That's happening because of food, right? Similarly, you just go there. I mean, if you don't even know people there local, you can just go and ask. I've done quite a bit that, hey, what's good to be had here? It's
Yeah.
something interesting and they just try to strike a conversation with you, right? Hey, oh, you're coming here for the first time, are you traveling? You should try this, and then you just end up having a meal with them, right? So I think for me personally, food is a window to culture, or a way to understand a place. That's one part. uh how it started, I think, I would say that I've been a foodie. I was a very annoying child for my parents. I mean, the way they want to put it, that I was very particular about it. The typical kids, right? Ye nahi
Mm.
khata, wo nahi khata, right?
Oh,
Those things.
finicky and choosy.
Yeah, I never thought like that, right? I still don't think, and we have a fight on that. I said, okay, no, whatever you guys were giving me, I was still eating it, right? They were, no, no, you had a lot of nakras and all of that. And that's one. And I also, now when I think of it, in hindsight, I also realize that food has been important for us, in our family as well. I still sort of know that both my parents, they're also very particular about food. I mean, my parents, they're in the 70s, but they still go out and do grocery shopping themselves. They
Oh,
still go and buy fresh vegetables, right? They will have this clear cut bifurcation of, okay, this is the rice for daily cooking, this is a different rice for making biryani and something like that, right? So I think it's probably started from that, right? Both my parents being very specific about that, then we have good food, good meal. Of course, my mom, she cooks really amazing meals, so we've grown up with that. And this whole feeling and idea that if I'm traveling, if I'm going to a different place, I get to try something which is different from what we have here, right? With the local cuisines of food, which fundamentally the taste profiles are different, or the texture of the food is different, or there are certain other elements, maybe spices, or even fruits or vegetables, the kind of meat that they use would be different from what we're having here. So the whole fact of that, you're able to eat and try something new, and you're open to it, really really sort of stuck with me. And it has increased over a period of time. When I travel, it becomes such an obsession that I'm like, while one part of planning is where to go
mm.
and what to do, etc., right? There are some elements where I probably end up going to a city or a place only to eat. That may not be a part of the plan, but like, oh, the food is good, there is something very interesting, speciality of this place, and I might just travel there. So where to eat, what to eat, a bit of research about it, right? Though it may not end up happening like that, because
Mm.
while I might think about it, that I go to a place and I would be, going to this particular restaurant or cafe and trying this. The moment when I land there, oh, there's so much. Might as well just follow wherever the locals are going, right? Just
Correct,
eat,
correct.
right, and you
Mm.
won't end up regretting it. And I think that's been the theme so far.
So, have you ever planned a trip just because you have heard something that the food there is god level, or one of your someone that you follow recommended the food of that area? Or I mean, we've done trips circled around a historical place, or you know, like I had got to Germany for beer, that kinds.
No, absolutely. I mean, in fact, most of my trips, that and that's what I mean, that a anyway, any place that you go to, right, would have sort of a food and cuisine. Of course, some are more famous than others, or more
Correct.
important, or much more diverse.
Mm.
And but I think that's the point, right? When I plan for a trip, or whenever I go, food is at the center of it. If for example, which is not the case, but if I know a place which is not famous for its food, or does not have so much in the cuisine to offer, I might
Skip it.
yeah, skip it and go to some place else for that. So food, coffee, is been the center of it, right? I mean, my trip recently to Indonesia or to Ethiopia some time back was focused on coffee predominantly, right? Because these are the places which are known for it.
Yeah.
Uh, so a lot of Southeast Asia, a lot of countries around Mediterranean, amazing food, right? South America has its own taste profile,
Taste
and
profile.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, food is at the center of it. I think what has also happened over a period of time, when I started traveling, go to different places, and there are different things that you want to do, right? And then started following Anthony Bourdain, and
Ah,
his love for food. That's how he became famous, right? First with his book Kitchen Confidential, then he had this whole No Reservations, and then Parts Unknown, and then now it's like, whenever I travel, and most of the places that I go to, Bourdain had been there, right? So it's more like, when I sort of go there, it's my thing, following Bourdain. So
Bourdain's Trail.
Bourdain's trail, right? So end up having the same thing at exactly the same spot where he was, right? And I think, to a lot of travelers across the world, he's been such an influence, right? The one,
Absolutely.
and then that had a strong impact. Then coffee, because started liking coffee over a period of time, so now it became, where to go, which are the places which really has coffees which they grow there, and it's amazing, because coffee also, it can be of various varieties, different, again, flavor profiles there, the way coffees are made, the way people consume it. So both of these things now
Yeah,
are in-
just the whole drama around consumption of coffee is different in different countries.
yeah.
I mean, countries can, even within India, you would see, if you are in South India, you have to do the filter coffee where one glass is like a feet away from the other one, and you have to do the tossing of the coffee.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to a Starbucks and it's all like very prim and proper and very
Mhm.
business-like. So you
Mhm.
have different, the whole drama around this
Yeah,
kind of
there
coffee.
are
You
there
go to
are
Turkey and there's a
yes,
different style. I'm sure it's different in Ethiopia and Kenya and
yes,
all of that,
yes.
where coffee is
All
big
of
as
these
well.
rituals which are there are like
Yes,
amazing.
yes. What really caught your attention? So in coffee itself, do you have a huge collection of coffee at home from different countries that
Yeah, I do.
memorabilia? Hmm?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have both, coffees from, around the places I travel to, or if I know somebody has been there and I know that, they now people know, right, that this guy likes coffee. They don't have to now think about, okay, they have to buy something for me. What would it be, right? Because
Standard.
coffee they there, he'll be happy, right? And then around the whole equipment that you use, right? So all
Yeah.
sort of various ways of making it, right? Be it South Indian filter, or a mocha pot, or an aeropress, or a espresso. So I do that, right? I mean, my weekend mornings are sort of dedicated time, because otherwise you don't have a lot of time in the morning.
Yeah.
But
So there is a Suhail ritual as well around
it
coffee.
is a ritual, right? So my weekdays would typically be that, I use grounded coffee, and then, put it on a mocha pot and just make it easier. But weekend would be taking out the beans, then grinding them,
Oh.
measuring them, and then try to make it. I mean, again, it's not that it would have made any difference, but it just makes you feel better, right? So
Yes, yes.
would do that. So yeah, coffee around the world, as I said, right? The one which is right now in the cabinet is from Indonesia. So there are various, different kinds of beans, and kind of coffees that got it from there. I can't buy a lot in bulk, because for a period of time, the taste changes. You're not supposed
Okay.
to consume very old coffee, ideally.
Oh.
But when I went to Ethiopia, I loved it so much. I mean, that's the best coffee that I've ever had.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, I
I
mean,
was going to
Ethiopia.
ask you, and I thought you would tell me that, I'm not sure which country this one is good, that one's good.
No,
But
no, no.
Ethiopia is
Yeah. I mean, I think it's initially you're not sure about it, but when you keep on trying various, you sort of have this memory, that you realize, okay, this one which I had was really amazing. Then, and Ethiopia stands out. They're the ones who sort of discovered coffee, right? And
the
that's where,
goats of Ethiopia.
yeah, I mean, it originated, yeah, from the goats. And that story of that guy, that the goats went crazy after consuming beans, and then started making coffee. So it's a place where coffee originated, and still has a very, very strong coffee culture. I think they know about it also, which is why they also sort of promote that, we are the country, where are the place where coffee originated. And they've maintained that, right? I mean, they also have a set of the way coffee is prepared. I mean, Ethiopia
Tell
was,
us more. Tell us more. What is the rituals that go around the coffee there and all?
yeah. So they have these, across restaurants. So what I realized, and when I was in Addis Ababa, so they have these, large restaurants which has this whole sort of a buffet style meals, because Ethiopia also has, in terms of food, similar to India, in which they have various, dishes, which people consume together. It's not like a sort of a one dish meal which a lot of people probably would end up having,
Okay.
right? So they have something known as Doro Wat, which is like a chicken stew, very similar to what we have in India in terms of taste, right? They have a shiro, which is a lentil based dish. They have their own injera bread, which is a fermented soft bread, which you have it with all of these dishes. So they have like a huge assortment of dishes people have. So they a lot of people end up having going to restaurants which are big in size. So they have these, the whole large community meals. And when you enter the restaurant, in the beginning you'll see a separate counter for coffee.
Yeah.
So they typically make coffee. They have their own local sort of a flask in which they make it, and sometimes they make it over coal. They sometimes
Oh,
use mocha pot also, but mostly, and then they have these very small cups without any sort of
handles
handles to hold on, but it's very very small, like a shot, like
like a shot glass.
it's like an espresso sort of thing because it's like small coffee shots. And while there could be various ways, but the one which I enjoyed, Ethiopia has also very, so they have really strong flavors, right? They have medium
Oh.
dark roast beans, so when you have the coffee you really get that hit of
Mm.
actually consuming a stronger, which is why they don't give you coffees in big cups, right?
Mm.
It's all small shots because that's what people have it. And across various ways of life, right? You'll see people in the morning having it, going to work in the afternoon. It's like, how people sort of consume chai in India, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
as like a social gathering, we're
Yeah.
just chit chatting with friends, or on the roadside you'll probably have chai. There it will be, coffee out there. What I saw in 2 3 places, there's this huge plate, like very big, on which so many such cups are there, and there's, usually somebody sitting on the ground, and they make continuously making coffee. And maybe because these are restaurants where a lot of people go in, so they're also dressed in their local, traditional dresses in Ethiopian colors, and you go there and they serve you, fresh hot coffee there. So that's how, what I saw. Amazing. I mean, the taste of coffee is
So
great.
they have coffee with all meals. I mean, even lunch and dinner. Because in India, we don't do coffee is either a beverage with breakfast
Hmm.
or a mid-meal beverage.
Yeah.
So you have it like at 11 o'clock and then you have it at 4 o'clock and things
Hmm.
like that. I mean, mid-meal beverage, not with a
Yeah.
meal. But here you're saying Ethiopia, when you're going to have a meal, you have coffee
Yeah,
along
even
with
for
it.
dinner. Yeah, yeah. So they have coffee available. I'm assuming it depends on individual preference where they want when they want to have it.
Yeah.
But it was there. I mean, I saw it across, breakfast, lunch, dinner in these restaurants. They were serving coffee. So I think they have a
Mm.
very very strong culture of consuming coffee as well. Yeah.
Very nice, man.
In fact, the place where I went to have coffee, because I had to go there, it's called Tomoka Coffee. So they basically, they're famous for selling coffee. People go there just to buy different types of coffee beans, and they also have a small cafe. So you just go there. They're not sitting there. These are these tables where you just buy a coffee stand and have it. Uh,
Or like the Udupi kind of style, Udupi
yeah,
restaurant kind of style
and
here.
and buy some coffee from there and just go, right? Because there's such a long queue there. That
Mm.
place started off, I think, in 1953, and Ethiopia's first, sort of, they used to call Emperor Haile Selassie, who the first one who got the country independent in 1950. He used to even visit there to, take his coffee, etc. So it is such a famous place,
Oh.
and that's the coffee which really, sort of hooked me to Ethiopian coffee, because I think that place probably gives the best coffee that you can have, at least what I've had so far. So really amazing. Bought again loads of coffee. I mean, my entire COVID lockdown went consuming that coffee. So I should at least have that 6 8 months of coffee stock with me.
Exotic coffee.
Exotic coffee.
And what else stood out in Ethiopia for you in terms of other food and beverages?
Everything. I mean, it's amazing. So Ethiopia just went right before COVID. I mean, in fact, it had already started. So the day I came
Oh,
back to India, I think a couple of days after that, the lockdown started. Right. So I
oh.
was fortunate that I was just back in time. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed there for a few more months, which would have been
Maybe
great
be
also.
good thing.
Maybe a good thing, but you never know. So, but no, again, as a country, some sort of, probably to some people, there's this skepticism about Ethiopia bordering Sudan, and so
Absolutely. Mm.
would be slightly dangerous. But as a country, it's relatively safe. You follow your normal precautions which you do anywhere else. But really nice. Again, amazing people, good, the whole cultural thing. So they have this old city of Lalibela, which has these rock strewn churches, which is monolithic churches, formed underground, which is one of the UNESCO World Heritage sites.
What is it called?
Lalibela. So Lalibela is the name of the city.
Okay.
It's a Coptic Christians site. It's a very religious site for Christians there in Ethiopia, and they
Mm-hmm.
have these massive monolithic churches, and they've been formed underground. Below the
Oh.
ground level, it's there. So it's one of the very famous churches, like St. George's Church. When you go on the ground, you just see a cross uh,
Mm.
on the surface, and then you just go near to it and you see it's the whole church, within
Unbelievable, man.
around it, and
Wow.
you see that, right? So it's a site. I mean, there is nothing like that really else, at least what I've seen. And then they have this whole entire they have these very traditional local villages. So there was an area towards slightly south in the southern Ethiopia called Arba Minch, which has these whole local villages, and you just go there and you see the village life and how they, because they have these whole traditional beehive sort of huts being formed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still the people live like they used to live centuries ago at those places as well. Now, of course, a lot of tourists started going there,
Yeah.
so they've
Mm-hmm.
made it like that. But they typically show the traditional way of living in those villages as well. So, in terms of food, I think, as I
Yeah.
mentioned, I think there is some sort of a similarity, between Ethiopian and Indian food, because I think it's one of the countries where I realized that they like consuming their foods with bread, right?
Mm.
They have this bread called injera bread, which is a fermented sort of a very soft texture, right?
Draw a parallel with one of the breads that we have in India.
uh
Rough parallel. Something like uttapam dosa kinds or something like
something
kulcha
some
with
yeah something similar to an uttapam type, but much more
mm.
soft. It just rolls over, so it's like a roll that is there, and
Oh.
you just
Mm.
open it, right? It's like a sort of a tissue paper roll sort
Tissue
of.
that you're opening.
And then you have these
Nice.
they have this curry sort of things as well, right? As I mentioned, Doro what is like chicken curry, and they have this
Yeah. Lentil
blend
based and all that.
as well. So you can basically have it like the way you have roti and
Mm.
curries in India. They have a very interesting and one of the dishes which I really love there. It's called tips, and tips is like a sort of a comfort food, if I may call it so. And it's like everywhere, right? So tips is like a food which goes with alcohol, right? Or
Mm.
tips you can just go and have it. So tips are basically these small chunks of meat, lamb, beef predominantly, and it's made right in front of you, right? So you just go there, you pick how much you want to take, right? And we are used to that, take a plate of it or one serving of it, it's by weight, right? So do you want like half kgs of it, do you want 1 kg, and that's
Oh.
and that's what, so when I went there I was like, so 1 kg, I was like, 1 kg I can't consume that much, right? So you really have to sort of tone it down. And then these are these small chunks, and then they sort of they roast it, right? So it's roasted and fried, sort of small chunks, and they have this spicy garlic sort of a chutney thing with
Oh.
it, and injera bread. So you just toast those chunks, and they're so fresh and juicy. By the time you're having it, I mean, it's amazing. Like it's very
Probably I could have had 1 kg, would have thought.
yeah, but I thought I have to catch a flight again next morning, so might as well, be slightly less greedy about it. But no, amazing. So it
Oh.
looks so simple, and it also has a very amazing presentation. So they give you this small, it's like a slightly deeper bowl, but they also have flame underneath. So it's always hot.
Oh.
So basically, when
Like
you're
how we see fondue and all that, the ways that the
exactly,
fondue is
yeah,
much bigger
yes,
here,
yes,
smaller.
yes,
Oh,
yes, smaller
nice.
than that, smaller than friend, but it's there because so it is above because it's on a height, it's like a plateau.
Mm.
So it gets quite windy and chilly in the evening, right? It's pleasant weather. It's like Bangalore weather, for example, but chilly and windy, so you have to have a light jacket. So and most of these are outdoor seatings, and it's enjoyed, as I said, over in a group of friends, or people just also having alcohol and just
Yeah.
having with it. So to keep it continuously warm, that's how they serve it. Very simple yet super amazing, right? I think tips are everywhere, right? You just go there and you just talk to people, "Hey, you want to have some tips," and like a
No.
community things, like a comfort food. So I really liked it. Went to a restaurant. It's called Katigna restaurant, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, right? Is Ababa. That's actually where again Anthony Bourdain went. So I had
Mm.
to go there, right? So they have this whole one platter where all of these things, these different kind of stews and curries, and along with the bread, it was served. So really nice, amazing food. Yeah,
My God. So I usually in every episode I ask people that what kind of souvenirs do you bring back from places? That question can delete it for this episode because everyone already knows. Even when if you're traveling, you have to get Suhail coffee, and of course, if he's going, he gets coffee as well. What a country, man! With Lalibela kind of historical places, great food, killer coffee as well. Absolutely best combination for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two questions that go from here. One is, so you mentioned that this tips that you are having is a comfort food. Now you travel quite a bit, and eventually, I mean, when you towards your end of your travel and all that, some people like to have comfort food, or if you fall ill in between a travel or something. What are the different kind of comfort foods that you've had across different travels? For me, let's say comfort food very often is just plain margarita pizza. But when you're traveling and you're a little exhausted or something, what kind of comfort foods can you think of that you've had? Tips being the top for your Ethiopia travel.
No, every place has different, food. It's also the way we are used to consuming, food in our own sort of setting and culture is different. So, for example, and depends. I mean, again, on individuals. For example, I am a person who does not have a really heavy breakfast, right? Because that's not I've been used to, right? But let's say my afternoon meal could be heavy relatively, right? For some people, it's the other way around. Usually, it's the other way around, and that's the interesting part of it, that a lot of famous foods which are present everywhere, they're ubiquitous across countries that you travel to, are food for working class, right? The daily workers, the people who actually build that country, if you call it, right? I mean, the ones who used to get up in the morning, and they just go to their work, and they stop by these food stalls and have a hearty meal,
Yeah.
right? And so that they can, that meal that can sustain them throughout the day, right? It's very wholesome, it's very hearty, it's not also expensive. And that is the kind of food which typically, if you see, has been a part of places around the world, right? I mean, for example, let's say if I take an
You've put
example
it
of,
so beautifully. I'm loving it. Yeah.
so for example, if you took, let's say you take the example of pho in Vietnam, right? Everybody knows about pho.
Yeah.
Pho is like their national dish, right? Pho is like soupy broth, typically made of beef, so it's like beef bones and its own broth. And you have slices of typically beef meat. You have other versions also, and there are these noodles, and you have some shallots or spring onion, etc. on that. So
I
it's like
love
a
it.
it's like a whole sort of a one bowl meal, right? Very very flavorful. The entire flavor lies in the broth. But how did fast start, right? I mean, there are various sort of stories about it. One is that it typically came to Vietnam from Chinese, right? Because Chinese brought in the noodles part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's also been said that it came from the French, because French used to have consumption of beef with sort of either rice or noodles, because Vietnamese traditionally were not consuming cattle, because they were using them for irrigation, other purposes. They had different meat preferences. So how did beef came into their sort of cuisine? So there are stories to it, and both the stories typically work, so you don't never really know.
Yeah.
But and both can work, because Chinese dominance typically in the North Vietnam, because that's where pho originated. So the pho that you get in North Vietnam, which is Hanoi, for example, and the one that you get in Saigon, which is the south of Vietnam, is fundamentally different. And why? Because as food also travel across the length and breadth of a country, it changes, right? And that's where millions of people come in. So I haven't been to really to Saigon. I mean, that's one place where I want to go when on my next trip to Vietnam. But there they have a lot of more condiments added to it, and there is a lot more sort of spiciness to pho. But in north, in Hanoi, it's all about the broth. The broth is smooth, the entire flavor lies in the broth. So it's much more subtle out there. So how did fast started? And one of the story goes is that around, 100 kilometers south of Hanoi, when French were coming in, so there were these French workers coming in, and they wanted to they were building this whole railway lines or all of those things. And French, because they were consuming beef, right? They used to discard bones and all. So the
Okay.
local people used those to create the broth,
Oh
right?
my
And then
God.
they were sort of selling this. So imagine in current times, the small guy on a cycle selling something, right? So he just
Yeah.
go from one place to other with a very small sort of a basket or a box at the back of his cycle, and just selling stuff to.
Santreya. Like how we
kachori
have
and
that.
all of those things, right? And then people are buying there, right? Who are these people who are
Hmm.
buying? They're the people who just work around these areas. So that's where the local Vietnamese started selling it, right? And then from there, it started becoming more popular. It came to Hanoi, of course, and places across the country, right? So that's how it started off, right? That's the beginning, and that's the beginning for a lot of food out there. So if you
Brilliant.
ask me,
Wow.
pho is a comfort food, right? I can have
It
pho.
is.
If I'm not feeling good, I can have pho. If I'm stressed, I can have pho. If I am just want it's just a cold winter evening, you're just tucked in your bed, and one meal that you want just to comfort you, it would be pho, because it's warm, it's flavorful, it's light, and it's also wholesome, right? You feel full up after it, and
Yeah.
that's having the typical quality of a great food, right? If it is super heavy on you, you may probably may like it, but while you're eating it, but not afterwards, right? If it is super light, you might get over with it in an hour, and you're like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
hungry, right? So it has to be that fine balance. Yeah, that is one of the dishes which I think one of my favorite dishes
Yeah.
across.
I love it too. And thank God for whoever's done it. It's a vegetarian version of pho as well.
Yeah. So they have a vegetarian version, they have a chicken version of it, right? All of those things, and yeah. So and in
And
fact,
pho is a breakfast item in a lot of Vietnamese places,
exactly, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
when you
so it's very surprising. I would traditionally, I mean, for us, a dish like pho would probably be a dinner item, but it's a breakfast thing. So, like, exactly like what you said. So, it's a very beautiful
it's said. So what
statement.
happens is, so in Vietnam, if you notice, they start very early, right? And I think that's true for a lot of Southeast Asian communities, right? I mean,
Hmm.
in Indonesia, right? They really start very early their day, right? So by 6:30 in the morning, you have these, on the roadside, these small, there are these, women start selling pho in the morning. So you have this one whole sort of cooker or something where you see this broth simmering, and you have all of these different condiments on the side and bowls on one side, and these very very small stools, right? You just go there, sit on one of those stools, order a pho, eat it, and then start going to work. And that's what a lot of people do. So it's a breakfast thing there, and it's also, as I mentioned, so sort of wholesome, and it's like a meal, right? So these people then
It is.
start their day with it, and then probably they can go about till up to evening with that meal. So that's how it starts, right? And that's how it also becomes a very popular street food also, because not super expensive. You can have it in so many places around these cities, and that's the beauty of the food, right? I mean, you don't really have to go to fine dining restaurants, or to the really amazing ones to have good food. You can, of course, and I mean, they do have varieties, and they do have
Yeah.
versions, and I've had some of the great meals there. But the beauty of the food is that it is for everyone. There is no bifurcation. I mean, good food is not only for rich people, let's say, right? Some of the best food is had by some people who probably they would not even have it if they go to a fine dining restaurant. And that's how the food is sort of the leveler, right? I mean, I've had my best meals which are supremely cheap, if I call it, right? I mean, if something is expensive, I have my doubts on it, right? So okay, this is where it is right in the center. It's a market, it's a place where only locals go. It's being thronged by locals. You see
That's
this.
the best. So, even when I choose a Pani Puri place, I'll only choose the one which is the busiest.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, right. Yeah, you go to a place, and that's what I do, right? I mean, if I don't know anything, I'll just go and ask locals, right? I can ask
Hmm.
my hotel or Airbnb person, whoever I find it at, where is the place where locals are eating, or if I can see myself, right? And it has been travesty that I've ended up having 6-8 meals in a day, because I move across the street, "Oh, ye bhi sahi lag raha hai, let me just try this as well," right? And I've overstuffed myself, because you just can't resist, right? I mean, food basically evokes all your senses, right? I mean, first is the visual, then is the smell, then is the taste, right? And then this entire feeling of having a really good meal. And I think the pleasure that you get out of it, right? I mean, it's amazing. So
Far tops your list of.
yeah. On the top of my mind, I would say, far really is there. There's also, for example, in South America, they have something known as empanadas, which
Mm.
is okay. The Indian version of would be, let's say, a samosa, right? It's like it's a dumpling. It's a fried dumpling, and inside they have different sorts of meats. Even in South America, they have different names, right? So they call probably, I think they call them salteñas in Argentina. They call them empanadas in Bolivia. You can call them guji or samosa in India. You can call them dumplings. You can call them pierogi in Poland. So it's the same thing, right? The same category of food, but made differently and served at different locations. So it's like a typical street food, right? So in Bolivia or Peru or even Argentina, going around, if you're hungry, you don't find anything else, right? Just go to any stall or a small shop that you see, and just buy empanadas from there. And I think empanadas have now traveled across different places, right? Of course, Spanish influence. I saw them a lot in Spain and Portugal, where you have these places coming up where they're selling empanadas. It's like very easy, right? You just grab them, a couple of them while walking, and then you can
Yeah,
eat
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, and if good ones are really good because they are fresh and warm, and they are that this entire juicy meat which comes inside of them. I think that's the amazing part. So yeah, that I think that I remember from that region.
Samosas are my comfort food as well. And then you have places which put samosas in soup. A lot of Tibet, Burma and all do samosa
Yeah, yeah, they
soups.
do it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
Burma,
so
Burma does it.
tasty.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. I love it. I just don't get the connection at all, but somehow it works well.
yeah, yeah.
And I just absolutely love samosa soups. My God.
No, it's
Mm.
amazing there, right? So in Portugal they have this. So Portugal's sort of national food, and it has been across rated. Various list or whoever you refer to as sort of one of the best desserts or pastry, different categories. They have
Oh.
this pastel de nata.
Mm.
A lot of people would have heard it, and in Portugal, it's everywhere, right? And mostly in Lisbon, but in around Porto and well, and it's
It
like
has a history around it. No, I've heard about it.
so
Yeah.
the history is basically, so there is this place called Belém near Lisbon. It's like a port across sea, so where sailors or traders typically came in. This somebody made this one, path. So it's Pastel de Nata, but in Belém, it is being sold in the Pastes de Belém. So they said,
Okay.
okay, we are the originator of this. So it's a very sort of flaky pastry on the outside, and there is a custard tart sort of thing inside. And again, that texture of that custard is not super liquidy, or it's not very thick. It's just the right sort of creamy texture to it. It's custard. It's super crispy, and it's best if you have it warm. So they
Mm.
keep on making it fresh in the oven, right? And you have to always be at the place where they've just taken it out of the oven, buy it there, and consume
Like it
it.
melts in your mouth, guys, when you have it.
It's crazy. I think the reason why it is so famous is because it can be had anywhere and everywhere, sort of a thing, right? So some of the desserts are super heavy, right? You
Mm.
can't think of having gulab jamun first thing in the morning, for example, right?
Let's
Some people
not.
can, but yeah, but think of it, right?
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
of the Indian sweets, for example, would be super heavy, right? From that standpoint, it is one which has very the right texture and balance of flavors, and the sweetness also. It's not very sweet,
Mm.
and it's not absolutely bland. So you can have it in the morning, you can have it as a source of energy because you're walking around and you just want to grab it. There's so many such places of pastel and other. I think this is the reason why it has become so popular, that features on various lists of best desserts or best sort of pastry, or whichever category you want to put it in. And that's also used as a comfort food there. So
Yeah, why not? Why not? So there are this the story around this particular desert I've read about it was that it actually originated in a monastery in Portugal,
that's
and
Belém. That's Belém
that's
Monastery.
Belém. And the reason why it kind of started, or when the ideation started, was that a lot of monks use the egg whites as starch for their clothes.
Hmm.
So when you use all the egg whites as starch, what do you do with all the yolks?
Yes.
So we need to do something with it. Let's just make a dessert.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, ऐसे भी problems होते हैं लोगों के
Hmm.
life में, and origin of how you have a desert and all of that. It's a
Yeah.
cute story.
And the way, because it is so famous across the country, now you have this whole competition, right? Like you have in India that, okay, which place has the best chole bhature in Delhi,
Oh
for example,
yes.
right?
Oh,
So,
it'll have world's best or those kind
yeah,
of
within local. So
boards.
you go to Lisbon and people are like, oh, this has the best pasta. No, 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 not this place, and people will fight over it. And I think that's yeah, that's
Like you have the story of between rasgullas between West Bengal and Orissa, right?
yeah,
They
yeah,
are
yeah.
where who has the OG rasgulla?
Everything, right? You have this whole dosas, which has a better dosa
Yes,
in
yes, yes.
Bangalore, Chennai, or you
Oh,
have
Chennai versus Karnataka. Yeah, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka
exactly.
dosa competition.
If you're a
Hmm.
fan of food, in the old Delhi part, then which place has the best nihari, for example. That's always a
Oh,
competition,
yes.
or best
Hmm.
kebabs, or best biryani, all of those things, right? So I think, yeah,
I'm surprised that biryani hasn't made it the cut for your comfort food. Uh,
No, it hasn't. I mean, it can be like again, who doesn't love biryani, right? It would be a blasphemy to say that. I mean, but biryani also has a lot of versions. But so again, it's a very interesting thing, right? That biryani is something which is flavored rice with meat, right? If you just put it blandly like that, right? And there are
Vegetarians as well.
vegetarian as well. See, veg biryani is a fad. I mean, let me
Oh
say
God, are we doing this again?
yeah, because there is nothing known as veg biryani, but okay, let's call it. So if you basically categorize the foods, right, and this is something which I try to sort of think about it in terms of how do you draw parallels in different food, right? Of course, there are a lot of it is local as to what is produced in that particular place, right? And hence, be it terms of fruits or vegetables or spices which are grown locally, of course, they will have a lot of influence. Second part is if there has been a lot of migration that has happened, either
Yeah,
people coming
of
from outside
course.
that country or other way around, that has an influence of food, right? And the third aspect, third categorization or the way to look at it is the elements of the food, right? So, for example, as I just talked about the empanadas thing, right? It's like a dumpling. So you have empanadas, you have saltenias, you have version in Europe, in Poland, it's very famous called pierogi. You have dumplings in China, you have momos in Tibet, you have samosas. Like you can say, okay, how are momos and samosas, for example, linked to it? But it's like something, you have an outer filling, right? Either it's fried or it's steamed, and you have something inside it, right? That's the definition of a dumpling
Yeah,
from.
yeah, yeah.
There are version of crepes that you can call it, right? I mean, people also like to put it in a very fancy language that dosa is a Indian savory crepe, which a lot of people hate, of course. Okay, you're just demeaning and you're insulting dosa. But if you want to sort of categorize or
Correct.
put some connection with
Hmm.
similarities, like this whole combination of what is biryani, right? So if you just basically break it into elements like flavored or spiced rice and meat, right? uh,
In layers.
in layers, of course, there are
Yeah.
layers, and then there is this whole the Lucknow thing, which is the pulao, which is yakhni pulao, right?
Yes,
And then
yes.
you have this whole pulao, which of course is sort of a Persian
Persian.
word, which you have Uzbekistan called plov, right? And it's there
Yes.
everywhere, right? You have in in Iran, Azerbaijan, all of that area, it's called pilaf, right? You also have not exactly the same version, but let's say, for example, in Indonesia, right? You have, for example, nasi goreng, right? Nasi
Hmm.
goreng is the national dish in a way, so as to say there. It's basically fried rice, right? So fried rice with meat. So the flavor of the rice is again it's meat cooked in spices, and then you have meat on it, right? So again, you can draw parallels to it, and there are of course various ways of making it, and fundamentally they also taste different, but that's the element, right? Another thing, another element is this whole point of having noodles, let's say, right? I mean, the noodles is predominant, it's there in Southeast Asia. You have a version of pasta which looks like a noodle, right? I mean, spaghetti,
Spaghetti and all. Yeah.
right? So that's also, while maybe they are not linked to each other, but there are elements of food which are common in the way people consume it. So biryani is like that. The interesting part is it's called biryan or biryani, which is also there in Iran, in only one of the cities called Isfahan. And
Mm-hmm.
Isfahan biryani is nothing like the biryani that we know of. It
Oh,
is,
really? I was going to ask you. So you've had biryani and the different versions that it's called across many
yeah.
countries. How different are the flavor profiles? Give us some
No,
like
so
visualize it for us.
I think this one is interesting because, as I said, it's called biryan or biryani, and it's Isfahan biryani. It is very very different from the biryani as we know it, right? It is not even rice, right?
Ah,
So, yeah. So biryani, it's in Isfahan. It's basically it's a fried meat, right? Again, typically lamb or goat. The shape of it is like a kebab, right? I mean,
okay.
like a shami kebab or a chapli kebab, and it is served with a bread. This bread is called sangak. So it's the slightly thicker than a rumali roti, right? But of course less thick than a tandoori roti, somewhere in between, right? It's
Okay.
very
Mm.
soft, bread, and it is served on the sides with some basic vegetables, onion and all, and also a small portion of fat
Like in a bowl.
on the bread. So you
Also
have
on the bread.
the
Okay.
sangat is a huge bread. It's a big bread, right? On top of it, you'll have this whole thing called this fried meat, which is
Mm.
the whole biryan, and then you have a small portion of fat, and you have these whole sort of small shallots.
Onions and all that. Hmm.
You just basically make a roll, or just put all everything in a bite and take it. That's called biryani, in Isfahan, and it is amazing. Like it is only sold in Isfahan. I've never had it anywhere else, right? I don't think it is sold anywhere else. There could be versions of it somewhere, maybe in local areas, but it's only in Isfahan. So when I went there, was like, because I knew that this is something which I had to try, end up, and there are also very few places that serve it. So you really have to find it and to go and to
Wow.
have it. And so it has a very, of course, as you would have, very meaty sort of a flavor to it, right, along with it, but it's amazing. I mean, it tastes amazing. So that's a biryani there. But
Do they claim having any connection to like the biryani, the rice biryani, or is just the similar name
it is,
coincidental kind
I
of
think it's
thing?
a similar name. They don't have it because
Okay, okay.
while biryani in India also has Persian roots and all, because they use the term
Yes,
Iran, and
correct,
the
correct.
whole belt of India and Pakistan and all. They have biryani as it there. But I think this biryani which I'm talking about in Isfahan in Iran is very different from as we know it, right? So it's biryani, and of course the similar version, for example, is plov, right? So
Hmm.
Uzbekistan is like plov is everywhere, right? Like, so it's called PLOV, plov. So everybody is having plov, right? So we went to a place in Tashkent, and one very famous spot, which it's a huge place again. It's like a hall, which can, I think, probably 500, 600 people can sit there at,
Oh, okay. Like almost like a wedding hall kind of thing.
almost like a wedding hall. And they have
Hmm.
these huge sort of a kadahis, if you call them, very big, in which
Hmm.
they make that plov. So you'll see that they put
Like
rice.
multiple people are going to be mixing it kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
huge, is
yeah, yeah.
it?
No, it's
Oh,
massive. It's huge, and there are so many of them because there are so many people eating it, and they're continuously making it. It's all fresh. So they have these, four or five of such huge kadais, like size of a room,
my
in which they are
God.
making it, and it's like a sort of a one pot thing, because they put rice in there, they put all the dry fruits and spices and meat, and it's cooked in its own fat, and that brings in the whole flavor of it, right? So it's very buttery in terms of the rice.
Hmm.
Look like they've been coated with ghee or butter, but it's actually
Animal fat.
animal fat. So from an Indian taste profile, it might look slightly bland because they don't add a lot of spices. And I
Hmm.
think from a biryani standpoint, what we are used to is, again, having those typically spicy biryanis, right? I mean, which has a lot of either some masalas in biryani coming out, or the rice itself has a lot of spices. Typically, everywhere in the world, I mean, of course, we know in India that we are typically a lot more, inclined towards having more spices or spicier things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But elsewhere, I think there is a lot of focus on the flavor and texture of meat coming out, right? So it transforms that. So they don't add a lot of spices there. You can taste the meat a lot better. So for a lot of Indians, it would look like, it's bland, but that's how it is made. And once you start sort of having an inclination towards that sort of flavor, right? It's not easy, right? Sometimes you might think that it is something that you acquire. You probably will not have it in one meal, right? I mean, I would have had plov multiple times there, because every
So you
city.
liked it? I was going to ask you, liked it?
I loved it. I loved it. So I
Oh,
really liked it. I mean, the this whole part of it, right? That it's relatively milder, right? It's less spicy, but it is also flavorful, and the flavor is of the way
the
they.
meat.
Yeah. So yeah, I think.
I'm very intrigued to. So I've always had this thing that I like to experiment and make my own opinions, but I'm unable to make the jump towards having meat. But it's very intriguing to me how meats have a flavor of its own, like
Yeah.
a goat meat, cow meat, or
Mm.
whichever different. I mean, they have a flavor of its own. It's very intriguing for me to get that together in my head because I'm a vegetarian. But it's very interesting to know.
And
Wow.
of course, every has its own flavor, and which is why it is also important that you get the right flavors and texture coming out of, which is why, of course, there are so many, thousands and thousands of varieties of dishes. Like, I mean, the same sort of meat can be cooked in so many ways, right, across
Mm.
various
Yeah, yeah,
countries.
yeah, correct.
They have different ways of making it. They have different spices. They have different ways to eat it. And I think, yeah, I think
Slow cook, roast, this and that. Even that will
exactly,
give, each
yeah,
will give a
absolutely.
different version
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
taste. Yeah.
And that's the whole part of it, right? That the more you taste it across various dishes
Forms.
or various
Mm.
cuisines or various forms, you realize that the best ones are the one which are the more simpler ones. The simplest way of making it is the most flavorful, right? The moment you add more complexity to it, right, which sometimes we tend to, right, कि सब कुछ ही डाल देंगे उसके अंदर, add so many
You lose
spices,
the,
you lose the base of it, the
yeah,
flavor of
yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
So it's that really fine balance of how you sort of make it or cook it in a way which is super tasty. And it also has to be one of the common elements, is that it has to be really tender, and juicy most of the time, which is not again very easy. So all of those things become really important.
Like how MasterChef, those guys is in a balance of flavors.
Yeah, balance of flavors, exactly. Yeah.
So it's that kinds. There are stories of the plov in Uzbekistan. There are stories of Alexander and Timur and all who have made it for their armies.
Yeah.
So this again comes back to that one story where you said made for the locals to actually have a
Yes.
hearty meal. So plov is also plov slash biryani slash whatever the
Yeah.
variations are also very much linked to that ethos kinds, probably the story basically.
Absolutely, because plov also is served, starts in the morning, so you probably have seen people having it in the breakfast as well, right? So I think that's a kind of, one big large meal
Mm.
which is there, right? I mean, the same is the story with Nihari, for example, in India. It was again made for, initially, one of the stories that is made for the armies of, the Mughal rulers and all. And it's again, cooked overnight, served first thing in the morning, and it is so again heavy, or for example, or so wholesome that you probably last the entire day just having it in the morning, right? So I think that's,
Mm.
no, but I think I've realized this, that most of the famous foods that we hear are the ones which have had the humble beginnings, right? People who
Yeah,
really have enjoyed it over centuries and have, it's like a staple. There might be a lot of also things or food which we don't typically now find or eat in a restaurant.
correct.
They might be in the homes only, like the local, or the people making it only there, right?
Very much. Again, back to my point being vegetarian for us. If I go to a restaurant, I mean, I would say maybe 90% of the restaurants, if I would go, I would not get, pumpkins and you would get bhindi, you would get
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
cauliflower, you
Yeah.
would even get cabbage. So things
Mm.
like that. It's
Mm.
so even some things as basic as that is are vegetables used made at home. Dishes, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. That's why many of these village experience kind of restaurants are
Yeah.
becoming a big thing
Yeah.
everywhere, right? Where you can get the actual what things that are made at home, cooked in the homes and in earthen pots and
Yeah.
under the ground on coal, all these kind of things. In Jordan actually, the night camping that I was talking about in Wadi Rum, the meal that we had was actually cooked in that kind of underground. I don't
Zarb.
remember what it said. What's it called?
Zarb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was an experience in itself, right? We got potatoes and gobi for us, cauliflowers.
Yeah. No, I think Zarb is amazing. Zarb is one of the, I also remember, very, very interesting thing, because when we went there, usually in desert also, but we also went there in November. It was quite chilly. It's cold.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you have this tent where you are staying, and then the food is cooked slightly, a bit, few meters away outside. And when we went there, and there were these guys making zab, we asked them, what is there for dinner for us? They could be making zab, and we saw this whole process, right? This multi layers of, it's like a, they put meats and potatoes and carrots, etc., and they just put it in this earthen oven, and which is cooked underground, and they just cover it completely, and it's cooked in its, with coal and its own heat. And later on they put it out after, sort of, it took us like what, 1.5 hours, 2 hours.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. Tasted so, the
Mm.
smokiness of the food that came out was brilliant. And that, again, that setting of having it in, super cold out, right? It's freezing almost, and you're having this, fresh out of the oven food, which is, super tasty, warm, and along with that tea that they keep on serving
They
throughout.
keep on serving, yes. Oh, Wadi Rum and the whole atmosphere there and the evening and having several cups of hot tea to keep yourself warm. Jordan, this is one country I'm so senti about. But you know what? We have these, I've had this many cups of tea wala experience in Turkey as well. And in fact, Turkey is known for both its tea and its coffee culture, right?
Yeah, it is, I mean, so, and of course they also have a different way of making coffee. It's mostly they have this small sort of flask thing which is with this whole handle to it, and they put it on top of sand. So it's a hot sand, and they keep on stirring the coffee. So the thing about Turkish coffee is that they don't. It's not like a filtering process per se which is there, right? So they put coffee on the bottom of it. They know sugar if they want to add it. They put water, and then they keep on stirring it, and they put it on the hot sand in which
Hot
it is
sand.
in which it is
Starts frothing on top of that, right?
frothing yeah, it brews, and then of course, after a while they take it out. And even when you are drinking it, right, when you go towards the bottom of your cup, you can taste that coffee, powdered coffee coming in your mouth, and that's where you have to stop actually, because you don't have to sort of take in that. So theirs is usually, there's no filtering coffee out there. That also gives it a lot more earthy and strong flavor of Turkish coffee. But I think I would rather say there is a lot of divided opinion on Turkish coffee, because not a lot of people like it because of this whole process, right? There is no filtering out there. And in coffee, and again, I'm not an expert, but one thing which you probably hear about saying is the smoothness of coffee, right? I mean,
Mm.
this coffee is really smooth. So what the smoothness means is that the consistency in every sip that you're taking is the same. In Turkish coffee, because there are these powdered coffee and very small coffee granules or particles, you call it, are there in the coffee, right? You also taste, I won't call it chewing, but having coffee like that, right? So for somebody who would like that smoothness of coffee, they
Yeah,
may
yeah,
not
yeah.
sort of appreciate it that much, versus other way around, right? I
Mm.
mean, so
That's
I,
true.
yeah, I, of course, I can't make it on sand because that's not feasible. I use the same vessel, but I put it on gas stove and then try to make Turkish coffee.
Oh, and since you're talking about coffee residue in Turkish coffee, do you know that in Turkey, it's a part of a ritual to do fortune telling with this coffee residue that's left at the end of the coffee. Yeah, ever heard of that?
Oh, is it? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's a big thing. So they say that the pattern in which the coffee beans, not coffee beans, the coffee residue is there after you drink each cup of coffee in Turkey. If you give it back to the person who is serving you, they'll actually see the pattern and they can tell your future. It's a
Wow.
fortune telling. Again, this is like what we call the ritual, right? This is a part of the whole coffee ritual that happens. And
Hmm.
they'll ask you, do you want your fortune to be told? And I am the
Okay.
kind who does not want to know about her future. So I'm like,
Yeah,
no, please don't.
yeah,
But I had a friend of mine who said, oh, yeah, why not? Let's play the game. And they said, oh, you'll be so rich. Oh, you'll, have something. All those feel good kind of statements they made. So you're very happy with the whole process and we kept moving.
yeah.
So a part of the whole ritual
I'd
of.
rather focus on having the second cup than wasting time in fortune telling. So
I mean, again,
yeah,
this is one of the things that has been happening since whatever eons ages now. Turkish coffee also has a huge, history behind it. Though coffee was originated in Ethiopia, the Ottomans from Turkey are the ones who have spread it across the world, through all the
yes,
Ottoman
yes, absolutely.
conquests and
I
all that.
mean, true with everything, right? I mean, whenever something becomes popular because of the trade. In fact, right now, perhaps the best coffee, or not the best, but one of the best coffee is grown in Yemen. So Yemen,
Oh,
this whole thing of Yemenis coffee, now, because of Yemen is war torn sort of a country over
yeah, yeah.
the civil war and everything going on. It's very difficult to have this, the entire coffee grown and exported to the extent that they would have wanted to. But Yemen was supposed to have really good coffee. Now, of course, the largest coffee producer in the world is Brazil, right?
Mm.
Imagine it originating from Ethiopia, but now across Atlantic, you have Brazil producing the most coffee, because of course the beans would have transported there and they started cultivating. And surprisingly, I think, as you were mentioning, the coffee culture in India has grown massively now.
Oh, yeah. It's like a fashionable thing and all that as well.
Yeah, and it has helped also because India is also now one of the, I think it's the fifth or sixth largest producer of coffee in the world. So it has really grown. I mean, the whole southern belt of the regions around Coorg and all have
Yes,
really,
yes.
really prop up a
And they
lot.
have lovely homestays and all these, many of these
Everything. Yeah, they have all
coffee
of these
plantations.
stays also, which you
Mm.
can, they take you to the coffee plantation also.
Yes, yes.
Unlimited.
Coorg and Chikmagalur and all that. It's a big thing
Yeah,
there. Yeah, very true, man. No, but the stories around many of these countries, coffee, the heritage stories and all are great fun. There's coffee at one point, maybe like 1500, 1600s. No, when it started off, it was said that it is both. I have to think of a very diplomatic way to say it.
like an
Uh,
aphrodisiac.
I've not not it was a it was also used as a Viagra. It was
Hmm.
also the problem for a dysfunction. So
Oh,
that's why
okay.
there was a big hue and cry at one point saying that, what nonsense. It is destroying all the men in our place. So stop it.
Hmm.
Then after that, many years later, I think in Germany, the king actually said, ban coffee,
Hmm.
start beer. What is this? We cannot keep importing coffee. Stop, ban coffee from the country, start beer. I'm a
Hmm.
very beer person and I'm not a huge coffee person. So I kind of resonate with that kind of story. But there are a lot of stories around coffee. Okay, now I completely skipped listening about your Uzbekistan stories. We were
Hmm.
talking about how you had the whole hearty meal in Uzbekistan. You spoke about so many things in Ethiopia. Tell us about a little bit about how food was in Uzbekistan. There was
Hmm.
one reference that I remember. One of our guests who spoke about Spain. She said that the best breads that she has had in all her travels has been from Uzbekistan.
Hmm.
I heard
Yeah.
that you should not cut the bread in Uzbekistan. They think it's wrong. You should always like break the bread.
Hmm. No, yeah, I mean, I think so Uzbekistan, first of all, is again amazing country. I mean, the fact that it's faster to reach Uzbekistan from Delhi than to Bangalore, slightly less than 3 hours away, and you don't have to then travel from airport to another city, which is Bangalore.
Oh,
Right?
okay, I get the point.
so,
Yeah, it's very
so,
annoying.
and I think it's catching up now, right? I mean, a lot of people have now started traveling there. Again, beautiful country in every aspect, right? The most amazing peoples. I mean, out of the world, right? So nice, like everybody is so welcoming, and that typical feeling, right? They just want to talk to you, right? I mean, they just want to
Wow.
know about you, and I think despite increasing tourist influx, I don't know, it might change in the future, but I went there about a couple of years back only, and it was amazing. It was, I mean, again, relatively small country, so it's very easy to travel. I mean, they have good train connectivity thanks to the Soviets, and they have this whole typical route, where you have to go and you're done, right? And it's
Mm.
it's a it's a very compact, it's a very nice itinerary that you're going to make it. Just land in Tashkent, go to Samarkand, from there go to Bukhara, go to Khiva, and then come back to Tashkent, right? And it's a simple thing. You can do some things here and there, and these are relatively small cities also, right? You just have to spend a couple of days, and you'll probably would end up seeing most of the things that you want to. And amazing architecture. I mean, the architecturally in I think in Central Asia, it's been rated as the best architecture around, right? I mean,
Oh,
so
wow.
blue
Mm-hmm.
tiled sort of mosques and mausoleums and all of that, right? So
Oh,
it's
wow.
one of the most amazing. I mean, it's like picturesque, right? You just go there and you just click your pictures out there, and it would come out amazing, right? Uh, I went there in December, so it was cold, and it was also snowing, right? So I could see the snowfall in Tashkent. So great, great country to go and explore. And from a food standpoint also, I think we spoke about plov being sort of the national dish being there.
Yeah.
They have also something known as samsa, which is samosa again, right? So,
Oh, there as well.
but instead of being deep fried, it's baked in the oven. So it looks like samosa. It's like this whole triangular shape, which has again fillings inside it, but it's baked, right? And again, the best way to have it is right fresh out of the oven, super hot and all.
With meat
So
fillings.
with meat fillings, yeah. I'm sure they would be having vegetarian versions also.
Mm.
I stayed away from it, but so a couple of instances. One is in Samarkand. They have this whole Registan Square, which is the most important area in Samarkand. We were staying very close to it. And just asked
Is
the
it called Registan Square as well?
yeah.
Oh, as
So,
in,
so
I'm surprised the language
yeah, I mean,
part of
there's a
it.
lot of commonality to it.
Mm.
So it asked the Airbnb slash hotel sort of where is the where can we go and have good. And as I said, the people were super friendly, amazing. He said, okay, you go to this. So he told us some rasta, okay, go to this gully and take a left, and then take a right and take another left, and you see so many taxi guys, going inside
Mm.
a house kind of a thing. That is the place you have to go. So he said it has no name, only locals typically go there, but that's where you'll have the best food. He said,
Oh,
"Oh, okay, that this is what I wanted," right?
of
So,
course, yeah.
just put down the bags, and then and we went there, and so it was this whole you enter from the outside, you don't see anything, right? Like just like any other normal house, right? You go inside, there's a huge courtyard in the center, and they have put these tables and chairs where people can go and eat. And they have all of these things. So they have, as I said again, so they have a dumpling version there. It's called manti, right? So
Hmm.
they have these small dumplings, and they have these again a soupy noodles version there as well. It's called lagman, right?
Acha.
Slightly different in terms of what, slightly thicker noodles there, and they also have, meat into it, and there's this broth part of it. And again, amazing, brilliant, right? And you will see lagman everywhere across, in Uzbekistan, but that's a place to have it. So really loved it.
You cannot even give us directions. So how will our listeners go to see this place? You go to that market, take a left and then a right and then a left, and where taxis are parked, you go there. That are the directions.
That are the directions. You just go there and ask where can I have best lagman, and and I think, I'm sure, and ask a local, and I'm sure they
Okay.
will tell you, right? Or maybe ask your hotel or Airbnb guy, right?
Interesting.
So,
Hmm.
so that's when, and then so next day we basically took we had hired a car to take a trip to this place where Temur was supposed to build the city, and is being he's been buried in Samarkand, but I think he was building this whole entire city. So this whole huge statue of Temur. It goes there. I think it's called Shahri Sabs. Yeah, now I remember. So the city is called Shahri Sabs. Subs means green, right? So green city, something of that sort. So basically, a lot of gardens, etc. They were building. It looks
Oh.
currently it looks like more like a sort of an abandoned or a ghost city from that perspective.
Oh.
But there was a
Okay.
huge city and complex that Temur was building, but he died right on the way. So he was, I think he's buried in Samarkand, and so that there he was planning to go there. So people go there because there is this one whole half sort of constructed doorway which is there. It also, I think, got impacted by earthquake, and then there is a
Okay.
huge statue of them over there. So you just go there. Uh, on the way back when we were coming, right, and our driver was again super enthusiastic, friendly guy, was talking about all of those experiences. And on the way back, he stopped, and we said that we want to have lunch, and where will you take us? He said, don't worry, trust me, I'll take you to an amazing place.
Perfect. I like this don't worry kind of conversation. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So he just stopped. So again, one of those places, mountainside, lot of people, so many cars, so many vehicles, coming again, all locals, and we didn't know what to expect. We were like, okay, he's taking us, let's just go there.
Hmm.
And there we saw ovens of a size of a human, right? So it was like basically like 6 8
6
feet,
feet, 6, 8
yeah,
feet.
6 to
Okay.
8 feet, tall, huge ovens which were there, and they were basically roasting goats, full entire goat being roasted in those ovens. So
Wow.
they had this sort of a stairs, outside the oven, so somebody would climb and actually, like half into the oven, he goes inside, and then puts that entire goat, and then after probably takes 1 hour, 1.5 2 hours, and then
Wow.
they were selling this. So you basically have this, then they basically you buy again
By the kg.
by the kg, right? So
Hmm.
you buy it by the kg, and then of course they will give you salads. I mean, basic, tomatoes, onions, and all, and this bread which Uzbekistan is famous for, right? So different sort of slightly thicker bread, or maybe slightly more like a naan bread, and it's huge bread that they have. And then you have this roasted goat cooked in its own flavors and fat, very bare minimum seasoning, right? So I think it had fennel seeds, something, they had basic salt and
Hmm.
very very minimal spices, but so tender. I mean, it was mind blowing. Like just fresh out of the oven. This
Wow.
it's hot. You just go sit there. You buy bread, and you buy, you take the salad, and you have this whole yogurt and all that. You can also have it along with it. Just
Unbelievable.
dip your bread in the yogurt, take a piece of that meat, and then have it. Oh, it was heaven. So, and
I'm not helping the cause by having this conversation
I think
when you're in Delhi.
yeah, I had it so much that I was like, now I'm done. Like, you want to carry me to the hotel, or how it was. I think on the way back I slept in the entire way.
Slept.
So it was like amazing.
Oh.
And I think that's the exact same thing which I'm talking about, right? Very very local, right? I mean, absolutely no tourists, so local. In fact, there were all these large groups, right? Either families or group of men coming in, and they will order like kgs of it.
Hmm.
Very fresh, right? I mean, and there was such multiple such outlets, but this guy said the reason why I have brought you here because this is simply the best, right? So again, very simple, right? No going over the board with spices or anything.
Spices, tam jam, nothing like that.
Cooked to perfection. And
Unbelievable.
so I think that was another really really amazing. I mean, if somebody who is who plans to go to Uzbekistan and who can consume non-vegetarian, I think that would be one of the recommendations. Probably I would make that, go to that Shahri Subs on the way back, stop for lunch and have that thing.
Wow.
I don't think
When
there was a name to it. It was just that,
Yeah, ask your driver the,
yeah,
the the most local place that I can have something, a lamb roast dinner, eight,
exactly.
7, 8 feet high
Yeah,
oven.
there was like a
Fab man.
we made this video, somebody actually coming out of the oven
Oh
from the
my God.
gaya kaise andar, and then
Oh
he
God,
just
they're propping themselves in and launching themselves out. Wala scene hai. Wow, please send the photo and video.
yeah,
Find it and send it across.
yeah,
Because you mentioned yogurt, right? I remember both Jordan and Turkey, we had this buttermilk kind of thing called ayran.
Iran, yeah,
We went crazy with ayran in Turkey and Jordan. You had these fresh places, like how here you have lassis made continuously. They
yeah,
had a machine for making the buttermilk where they'll keep on stirring and stirring. It'll just keep on going on and on and on and on.
yeah,
And they'll give you a frothy glass full of ayran. This Uzbekistan, Iran, and all also, do they also have,
yeah,
dishes
yeah.
like this?
So they have it. Iran, of course, has Iran only. It's called that.
Mm,
Uzbekistan also has, you can, with meals typically, either in a drink format, you can have, uh, this yogurt on the sides.
mm,
I think the reason why it is that does two things, right? One, of course, it is good for your gut. I mean, helps in digestion and all.
yeah.
Secondly, it also brings texture to the food, right? Because otherwise, if I'm having, let's say, a dry meat relatively, right? I mean, it's not like that, I'm having it the way we have it in India with, with curries or or a soupy base, right? It's
Yeah.
very dry. And then you have it with bread, right? I mean, you probably would want to dip it in a yogurt, or you have things like tzatziki, right?
Mm.
In
Very fond of all those
yeah,
Lebanese in
Lebanese dips, as
quotes.
we call it.
Yeah.
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 So I think the reason for dips is exactly what it means, right? You just dip it into it so that it also brings in some element of that texture that it's not supremely dry. Otherwise, you're having it just bread and the
Yeah.
meat or kebab with it. So which is why I think it goes with most of the meals, right? And Iran and Turkey, which are both very heavy on the kebabs thing, right? Which is basically, they make it over fire, or in oven, or coals, etc., and they basically serve it with bread. So
Yeah.
iron, or having a yogurt or any dip by the side of it, typically is what people go with, right, to make it a complete meal from that standpoint.
Yeah. It's very interesting how many of these countries, I mean, this is one of those migration kind of stories that you had mentioned earlier, where, this Lebanese in quotes kind of dishes, all these dips, falafels and hummus and tzatziki and so many others, baba ganoush and all of that. You get it across. I mean, actually, you get it now in India and all that as well. Your pita platter and all of those things. But it's. I got great ones in Greece. The Greek dips are so phenomenal. Turkey, of course, Jordan was great. What about Morocco? Does Morocco also have a lot of all of this?
Uh, Morocco also has it, right? But
Mm.
but I think from what I remember in Morocco, that so they've also being in the whole West Africa,
Yeah.
Maghreb, is used to call it. It also had two major influences in its food. And one, of course, is the local tribal population, right? So the people living, the nomads who live in the deserts, right? They call them Berbers, who stay in the northern side
Yeah.
of Morocco, right? The similar one is, for example, are Bedouins in Jordan, for example, right? They're also
Yes.
the nomad, the desert people. So because they have been living in such conditions, and they have been, for centuries, been living in those, the desert people, or the desert tribe, as you call them. So they, of course, will have their own ways and mechanisms of making food, right? Because I think there is a lot of focus on how do you preserve it, all of those things. So Morocco, while it had influence, but Morocco is also quite famous on this, the earthen clay pots, right? So tagine or tangia, as they call it. So they have a lot of single pot meal cooked, which is also quite. I at that point in time found it quite unique. Marrakesh, you go to the whole Jamal Fana Square, which in the evening transforms into this, the whole food stalls coming, right? So suddenly
Oh.
So like and that's again commonality, right? Most of the places have these huge squares where in earlier times it used to be a congregation of people coming in, or something important happening in the city, people would gather in one of those squares, right? So Jamal Fana is like one of that square in Marrakesh. You have a mosque on one side, you have a great sort of bazaar there which has gone to those alleys of bazaars, and this whole square on the outside where during the day you have these henna artists, they have these snake charmers, right, there in the afternoon.
Wow,
And by
nice.
sunset, the entire place transforms into a food hub. So there are
Mhm.
these, food stalls that come up. So you have this whole smoke coming out, sit around the cafes overlooking Jamal Fanasker, and all you could see is those lights, these different stalls and the smoke coming out. So
Okay.
it just transforms. So these two very common. One, of course, is tajin, because it's like again an inverted sort of a pot in under which typically meat is cooked. So the name tajin is the name of the pot itself. So where it's coming, and
Okay.
there's another pot which looks more like a cooler type ka, but slightly larger in size. It's called
Okay.
tangia. So they also again they cook it. They put it inside in an oven or over a coal, and they
Kullad
also,
means kullad chai. It's like a glass,
but it's covered, but
but
slightly bigger,
larger.
but larger.
Larger.
Basically,
Okay.
they
Okay.
cook meat inside it typically, and that is done inside these narrow alleys of the bazaar there during the afternoon, and in the evening when these guys come out to sell, so they will be bringing all of these cooked pots, and they
Oh,
will
like how
sell
you have
it.
this dum biryanis cooked
Exactly,
in the
small
dum
thing,
style, small
yeah,
ones.
जो मटका जो
Ah, interesting, interesting. Nice.
so Morocco has a lot of that culture, right? They have this one pot cooked meals coming in, again meat heavy, but they'll have other vegetables also cooked together
Hmm.
with.
And
There's
Morocco should have a lot of spices also, na? Spice route.
Yeah, they have spices. They
So
have great.
their food will be little higher on spices compared to like Uzbekistan and other Iran and all
Yeah,
of that.
yeah. So they will have, they have these, spices infused into it, and great. I mean, Morocco mint tea. Now we know it everywhere.
Yeah, it's again one of the in things.
One the thing, but mint in Morocco is unlike any mint tea that you will have anywhere else.
अच्छा, क्यों?
Suddenly something about that mint tea, right? I mean, like they have these
Ah,
glasses, like India में जो चाय के जो बड़े glass होते हैं,
yes.
something like that only. They have the actual so many mint leaves, like fresh mint leaves that they'll put into it.
Hmm.
The tea will be like your typical your normal Assam Darjeeling tea sort of thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they have this sugar cube. So I think
Hmm.
there, and I've seen this a lot around this area. I mean, in Iran also, Jordan also to some extent, and Morocco. That all of these. So people consume tea, of course, a lot along with
A
coffee.
lot, a lot. In
Yeah,
fact, we used to ask him, what is this? And they said
yeah,
that the tea is very light. It's not like
exactly.
the way we put
Yeah,
our chai
yeah.
patti. It's
Because
very light. But
हमारी
it
तो
is an unbelievable number. They, but maybe 20, 30 a day
yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that. Hmm.
Exactly. So they have a lot of tea because it does multiple things, right? One of course is that as you said, that it's not that heavy tea which we have, because we cook the tea and we have milk and all.
Hmm.
It's not milk based tea, right? It's typically
Hmm.
sort of a black tea, right?
Correct.
And they can have it everywhere. So, for example, people consume tea when, let's say, they are hungry, right? So basically, friends of their hunger, you don't have to continuously keep eating, right? Which is why again it got popularized coming from the relatively poorer segments coming in, right? So
Hmm.
that second is tea, of course, because to keep them awake and at
Alert.
thing
Hmm.
alert, and also they use tea as a substitute for a dessert as well, right? So that mint tea, right? I mean, the beauty of that mint tea is that it is supposed to be extremely sweet, right? And that's how it is. So now whenever we used to get to these cafes to have mint tea, of course there's a very strong flavor of mint because they have this fresh mint leaves in the tea
Oh,
itself.
I love mint. Hmm.
And then you have the sugar cubes, right? And we could see people around there. So, everybody would put in that small glass like 3 4 sugar cubes of it, and they have it, and which is why people have that mint tea after meals, right? So once you've done the meal, of course it will probably keep you awake, and also it acts as in dessert, right? Similarly in Iran, in Iran, we saw a lot of people consuming tea, of course, post meals, etc. And they also have this so they have this crystallized sugar, looks like a sort of a lollipop,
Okay.
thick patli si, there's a thin stick, and there's crystallized sugar. So basically people will keep on dipping sugar in
Oh,
the tea.
like how we do dip for tea, then we
Huh.
dip for
They
sugar.
dip sugar. So because it's crystallized sugar, so they will keep on dipping, and then
Hmm.
they start, they consume tea with that. So it's sweet actually, right? And a lot of them have it post meal for these reasons only. I mean, they say it's a substitute of them having desserts. I mean, they can have it with dessert also, but
Yeah, I know, I know.
a
It's
lot of
just
them
cheaper
have it.
also probably.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
actually many of these places tea is free. the amount of tea they make, they
Yeah,
just
yeah,
keep
yeah,
giving it out.
exactly.
So
That's
it's
also there.
so
Yeah,
so
yeah,
inexpensive.
yeah. So you go to a restaurant for a meal, they'll just bring tea like that,
Yeah,
right?
they just bring tea like that. It's like water over here, how
Yeah.
they give serve water. The same thing is there for coffee in Turkey as well. So
Mhm.
coffee in Turkey, they don't put sugar in it
Yeah,
unless you ask for it.
yeah,
But at the end, they always give that Turkish delight, that
yeah.
weird sweet one. I don't even like jelly kind of.
Slowly kind of a thing. Yeah, it's
And
very
it tastes like, I don't
tasty.
know what. I don't mind eating jelly, but this Turkish delight was something. I just do not know what it did to my whole head. I got one like shiver down. But
Yeah.
it is something that everyone there, as in locals there, usually do. They have their coffee. It's bitter. They have it, and then they have a Turkish delight
Mm,
after the coffee
yeah.
to get your taste buds back. Okay, back to your Moroccan food stories.
Yeah, I mean, so those were the things, at least from a Morocco standpoint, that stood out, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and again, Morocco, amazing, beautiful country, right? I mean, it looks like as if you are, traveling back in time. It's like more of that, getting into the Arabian night sort of a thing, right? I mean,
Nice.
I tried, camel meat for the first time in Morocco.
Ooh, and how was it?
It is different. It has its own sort of, you have to get acquired to its taste. Slightly more on the chewy side. I actually ended up
Okay.
having a camel burger. It was super heavy, but
Acha,
yeah. So this was in the old town of Fez. So we were in,
it's common there, camel meat.
slightly, yeah. It is not as common as other meat, because of course camels are also used for, transport,
Mm,
they use in deserts. So it's not that, super freely available, but it's there,
mm,
right? I mean, it's part of the, you can find it across. So
mm,
there was very famous cafe, in the old town of, it's the city of Fez. It was called
mm.
Clock Tower Cafe, if I remember, and the camel burger was famous. It's slightly chewy. It's you have to get acquired to it. But yeah, interesting taste to that.
Mm.
So that was there. Then, Casablanca, which has port, so they have a lot of seafood thing,
What?
right? So I remember having, this very interesting. Can completely visualize it, but it was something like how you have a paneer bhurji. They had something like a shrimp version of it, like
Oh,
a shrimp
okay.
of sort.
Shrimp burji. Nice.
Yeah, and they served it with this bread again, right?
Mm.
Again, super amazing, like interesting, great food. Had it.
I like how breads are used like a spoon, like a plate, like a cleanser. Everything.
Everything,
Breads are
yeah,
used in everything.
yeah, because they have these, the breads are in abundant there, right? And people carry breads on their shoulder like this.
Oh my God.
Bread ऐसे लेके जा रहे होते हैं, so
What about, so Morocco is also known for its olives and its citrus fruits and all of that. Huh? Even Turkey, even many of these countries are very much
yeah, I
known for
mean,
their citrus
yeah,
and
yeah, I think that's what I said, right? God has blessed Mediterranean, so everything which is around there, right? They have
I
everything.
think it's a very Spanish influence that actually olives and all that were a lot because of the Spanish influence in all these countries.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
also there. Plus locally, because of again
Of course,
the environment around there, because of
it
Mediterranean.
grows there, but it
Yeah,
started off
yeah,
from being
yeah,
having a lot of, I don't know, Moorish or Spanish. I think Spanish influence that
yeah.
all the citrus, so your oranges and
Oh yeah,
lemons and olives and all these are because of that influence. But yeah, I know it's blessed
it's
with
blessed
all
as well.
this.
Yeah. I
Yeah. So
mean,
my breakfasts were like full of orange juices and pomegranate juices and oh my God.
orange juices is, so yeah. I mean, I also remember having the best orange juice in Marrakesh only. I mean, there's such big oranges, or Malta. They're so tasty, right, and so fresh, right. And I think Malta is also not very far off, so probably it would have originated from there. Turkey has amazing food, right? The peaches, apricots, plum, so,
Unbelievable. Yeah.
so juicy. Like, I mean, I remember I wasn't, when I used to travel, I didn't used to buy, like, go to a local market and buy fruits there, because we end up having meals in a restaurant, or a cafe or a roadside. But I think from Turkey is when I started buying fruits, right? I mean,
Yes.
well, like, the one of the meal was fruit, because it was so
Yes.
amazing and so
Yes.
juicy. So yeah, I mean,
100% agree. So after, because there you get even grapes, the regular
just
grapes are
everything,
like
everything.
amazing.
Crazy. Yeah,
So in Turkey, I remember we were staying in an Airbnb, and the host, they gave us pomegranates as return gifts.
Hmm.
Two pomegranates each person. We were four of us. So how do you cut a pomegranate? Yeah, we were staying in a hotel. After that, you don't have a knife. You can't just like, you can peel an orange. You can't cut pomegranate. What do we do? Each pomegranate, one football size. Huge
Hmm. Hmm.
pomegranates. So in Turkey, you have, as you walk, you'll have those juice vendors, that fruit presser juice kind of thing.
Hmm.
So we just were walking. We saw one fruit presser thing. We gave up pomegranates to them and said, "Can you please do it? We'll pay you. We don't have a problem paying you. Just give us the juice." Oh my God, you could fly after that. What pomegranates, man? So
Hmm.
yeah, this really, these countries are blessed with having the best kind of.
In fact, in this region, they also have the pomegranate itself has a lot of significance, right? And especially in Iran, right?
Mm.
I think it is, pomegranate is so famous
Mm.
that sometimes it's called as a fruit of heaven, right?
Why? Like, what's the story?
So 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 if you observe the architecture, right, in Iran, in a lot of places, they will have pomegranate made out. So because it holds such a significance, it was everywhere, right? So it was part of the royal families and courts, and as a fruit, I think because everybody liked it. So it's a fruit of heaven. It is associated with peace and prosperity and all, which is why in and in it's there across, but I notice it's predominantly in Iran because they have these Nowruz, which is their New Year. So
Mm.
Iran, of
Mm.
course, has, of course, they have the Shia Muslims, and they also have Zoroastrians, right? So every fire temple, or the temple which Zoroastrians have, they have a pomegranate tree within the compound. So that's how sacred it is, right? So it's very, very, which is why in all the festivals, right, the Yalda festival, or on the Nowruz, on the New Year, or on the solstice, summer winter solstice is called the Yalda nights, which Persians, Iranians celebrate. They have pomegranates, right? So they have the huge watermelons also. So you'll
Mm.
see in some of these decorations, so you'll have watermelons and pomegranates. And it is also one of the countries where it is a very, very important part of their food also, ingredient, right? So some of the Iranian dishes, which are of course very unique to Iran, and you probably, at least I have not had them anywhere else, and you won't find them, are pomegranate based foods. For example, there is something known as torsh kebab. Torsh means sour.
Okay.
We have sour kebabs. Basically, it's like kebabs, like the way you make it on skewers, but they are seasoned with pomegranate juice, or sometimes plum juice also, right?
Mm.
They have a very interesting dish, which is again very famous in one of the regions of Iran. It's in the Gilani region. It's called fesenjan. Fesenjan is typically again a stew. It's a meat stew, predominantly chicken, and there the stew and the curry, or that is pomegranate based, right?
Nice. So balance of flavors happening again.
So it has this whole, it's like the sour and the sweetness of it
Yeah.
coming in, right? And mixed with other spices. Yeah, and I think big, so huge sized pomegranates in
Very interesting. I remember actually, so when I talk of souvenirs from Turkey, we actually got back pomegranate molasses in a bottle, which we used to make salads. It's a beautiful base for a salad, it's so
yeah.
good. We just heard about it, so we just went and bought a bottle and we loved using
Mm.
it. Okay, tell me. So you've spoken about camel meat. What are the other exotic in quotes meats that you had, or dishes that you've had? Not necessarily meats, other dishes as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few.
Go for it.
So I've tried whale.
You've
Uh,
tried whale. Oh my God,
in
I thought it's really rare. So my one of our guests who went to Alaska said that he had whale meat.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, some of the meats which I've tried are are also really cute animals. So it's typically, you tell, and people would, yeah, it's cute but
To
tasty.
each its own. Yeah, I have. If it's
Yeah. So
served
but,
there legally, then have it. Yeah.
yeah. So so whale, it's more like a steak of sorts, but because again whale meat is very, very chewy. It's very hard. I think from what I remember, they said they had marinated for 24 hours before they could
Ooh.
actually sort of grill it and serve, and it was still relatively chewy. So that's
You
how.
could have it in a restaurant. You had it
Yeah, in
served
the
in a
restaurant.
restaurant.
Yeah, in the
It's
restaurant.
served in a restaurant as well. I thought
Yeah.
it was just a local that you only
No, no,
have it
served
in
in the
your
restaurant
houses.
Iceland. Yeah. So I
Mm.
had whale. I also tasted puffins. These
Oh my
small.
God, they are so cute.
So that's the reaction. So, but
Where
so
do you have puffins?
Iceland
Iceland,
only.
Greenland, Iceland.
in fact, same place. So I mean, I
Okay.
think they were probably specializing in exotic thing. So,
Yeah.
but again, very very different texture and flavor.
Mm.
I
Puffin tastes like any other bird meat or something.
no, it's very different. I mean, yeah, something somewhat similar to pigeon,
Okay.
which I had in Indonesia. So
Mm. Okay.
in South America, I also tried alpaca. So it's a cameloid sort of breed only, but alpacas
Mm.
are
Yeah.
like those cute furry animals.
Very cute.
But yeah, so
Hmm. And alpaca is one of the national animals, something of that part. Is it?
I
No.
don't remember either, but I think they were
Because
quite
I remember Australia has that one tagline that we are the
kangaroo.
only country where we eat our national animal.
Yeah,
Yeah, kangaroo meat. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think those are the rest are mostly
Sharks.
shark. Yes, so yeah, shark also like tried in Iceland only. It has a very very pungent odor. So it's again the taste is horrible. We just tried it just for the sake of tasting it.
Mm.
Not will not recommend it. I think it's
I
one
was
of
going to ask, is there anything that any meat that you had for experimenting sake, but
I think I would
reaction
say
aya?
shark only. Yeah,
Shark.
yeah, the way it was served. So.
What are creepy crawlies? Have you had those? Thailand and Vietnam have a
No,
lot
no,
of
no,
creepy
no,
crawlies.
no,
No?
no,
Scorpions and all that?
no, no.
I remember we went to Cambodia and Cambodia had, we were walking around the streets. We love eating local street food as well, but it is so difficult in Thailand, Cambodia, but we still manage.
Hmm.
So we were walking, and then there was this one guy who was like how we have these Bhelpuri guys who walk the walking Bhelpuri walas in India. This guy was walking with one thing in front of him with smoke coming out. So we went ahead of him and we saw, what is it? And it was the small snakes, scorpions, and one more, I think cockroaches. Okay, and it was in a skewer. He had a menu with a price tag beside it where it said that whatever the price of this is 10, whatever it
Hmm.
was, okay. But if you want only photos, it's 20. Because there were
Okay.
so many people coming just to take pictures of those
Yes.
scorpions on the skewer and all that. He had decorated very well.
Hmm.
So photos were costlier, and if you wanted to eat it, it was cheaper. But I was very intrigued about, how are scorpions eaten. But that's when I realized, that's when I found out that if scorpions sting you, that is poisonous. But if it enters through your digestive system, it's not poisonous.
Okay.
I was not aware of this because I was like, oh, how can someone eat a scorpion? Isn't it
Hmm.
like janleva?
Yeah, I mean,
Very interesting. Okay. So Suhail, this is one question that is ekdam special to me because I am extremely fond of pizza. So I mean, it's one of my kind of soul foods as well. A dish that I very commonly have, especially when I'm traveling, because you get it very easily these days everywhere. So invariably, I always go around trying different pizzas when I travel. So there are so many different kinds. Like the famous pineapple topping pizza in India. You have the Chicago deep dish pizza
deep
and
dish pizza. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
different kind of varieties. So what are the pizzas or the varieties of pizzas that you've had through the different places, that different countries that you visited?
No, yeah, I mean that is there. Brooklyn has its own famous pizza, so
Very
have
famous. Hmm?
very famous. But usually other pizzas are relatively similar. I mean, in terms of the base that they use, could be either a thin crust or it could be a Napolitana sort of a base and
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
I think one pizza that stood out, for me typically was the one I had in Argentina. It's called Fugazeta, right?
Mm.
It's an amazing thing, right? Because you like going to Argentina, at least when I went, I never expected that I would probably end up having pizza in a meal, right? Because you go there for steak, right? I mean, they have the second largest per capita consumption of beef in the world, right? After
Which is
Uruguay.
first? I thought they were first.
Uruguay, which is just north of Argentina. So
Okay.
Uruguay is the number one, and these guys are number two. And Argentina is amazing. I mean, I think Buenos Aires probably would be one of my favorite cities. Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Right? It has that whole European, feel and vibe and culture and everything because this whole broad alleys and these huge buildings by the side of it similarly, but and they also have a lot of influence because a lot of European immigrants came in, right? Typically from Italy, a lot of people from Italy, Germany, etc. During the whole Nazis period as well. So I think that also brought a lot of their cuisines, right? I mean, I think the one point was that initially the local Argentinians were also not very fond of a lot of Italians coming in because they used to call them mafiosos, the mafia and all. And Argentina, there has always been this discussion then uh, if I may use it, are very purists in that sense. They're very, very sort of particular about their own heritage and culture, or that whole
Oh,
superiority thing. And it hasn't been happening because in the recent past and for some time now, their economy is not in a very good shape, right? So think of it, this place as a society which thinks of very highly of themselves from that standpoint, right? But it's not that they are a rich country now relatively because of this whole economic issues that they're
okay.
facing, and it
Hmm.
translates into various forms of life. It happens into their this whole Argentina Brazil football rivalry, all of this. A lot of things comes from there, right? I mean, a lot of really
Lot of self pride, but
pride sort of a thing, yeah. So the reason, so initially when the Italian cuisines typically came in, and pizza and all, they were not very accepting to it, right? You have our own food and all, and
Hmm.
Argentina has been quite big on meat again, right? So they have these barbecues, so it's called asado. It's again like a family thing for them, right? So they will have these whole the whole weekend rituals of asado. So the whole
Acha.
family and friends will gather, and then वो barbecue लगा के, and they will roasting meat on it and drinking, and
Oh,
everybody
what
gathers.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And it goes throughout the day, because so, and that's another thing from a cultural standpoint, because they live life in some way, right? The Argentines, they will be, weekend will start Sunday morning पे ये Saturday में शुरू हो जाएगा उनका सुबह से barbecue, and then the entire day it goes out, like they will
क्या
be
बात है,
eating
क्या
meat
बात
on
है.
it, and then drinking, and then enjoying and chatting, and then again
It's a real community
yeah,
living
and
wala
again
day.
the barbecue will restart, and again they will do it. So there are a lot of focus there, and hence steak and all. But then later they adopted the whole Italian food and all, and then they have this whole version of a pizza. It's called fogazzetta. It's a very soft, fluffy base, right? It's different, right? It might look like that. Okay, you might have a normal base pizza like that, but it's a lot more fluffy from that standpoint, right? And it has sort of kilos of mozzarella, right? It's like cheese and cheese and cheese, a lot of cheese, right? And it's amazing, right? Because it's not a lot of other lot of seasonings and all. It's predominantly cheese. There are various versions, but I think the most famous one is, then we have this whole pizza base and a lot of cheese on it, right? And you have it. So we went to this place called I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's called Guerin. It's very old pizzeria, or a place there in Buenos Aires, and it's huge. It's massive. It has sort of multi floors of seating, but there is always a waiting, right? So you have to just stand in queue, because
Wow.
so many people go and have it there. They also have something, basically call it as there are different these pizza toppings. Then they have a version which is called I think it's called favia, so it's basically like it might look like a pizza also, but it's more like a pancake sort of a thing, savory,
Okay. Hmm.
and they put it on top of the pizza. So that pizza now looks like a sandwich. So you have a
Pizza on
slice.
pizza.
Yeah, you have a slice, and then you have this favia. It's basically a chickpea base sort of a pancake.
Okay, okay.
They put it on top of the pizza, and then they have it. So that this favia thing has come up. And again, as I mentioned, going back to the fundamental, this is again started off as a working class food, right? Because chickpea base, it's high source of protein,
Yeah.
relatively cheap for people who cannot afford meat, right? And that's where it started selling off the streets in Buenos Aires, in the relatively poorer neighborhoods of Boca, where Boca Juniors football club is, etc. Right? So they have these barrios, and then they have these small sort of barrios is basically municipality or locality, if you call it, where
Okay.
relatively poor working class people living there. So they used to buy this favia on the way. So then they started sort of putting it on a pizza, and then now you have this unique combination of
Pizza, 5 kgs of cheese, and then this favia on
and
top of
this
it.
thing, right? And people have it. Oh, it's amazing, right? You have it, and
Oh,
it's so fulfilling. It's very
adding
tasty.
to comfort food ka
Yeah,
list.
yeah, adding to that. So I think, yeah, that was a unique thing. Yeah.
Wow, nice. Argentina's also has, if I'm not mistaken, or once upon a time had this world's largest pizza for Guinness Book of World Record things.
Was it? I'm
Yeah, there is. I don't know whether currently also it's number one, but it
yeah.
did at one point had the world's largest pizza thingy.
Mhm.
So one such pizza story that I remember was having the Happy Pizzas on in Cambodia in Siem Reap. So their markets have something called a Happy Pizza, and you can kind of understand what this happy in quotes means. So they'll give you an option of whether you want a full happy pizza or a half and half pizza which is half happy and half regular toppings. It was great fun, I can tell you. But yeah, that was in Siem Reap, Cambodia. Another pizza that was one of my very famous ones, which is also a very very popular one, was the pizza from Naples, which came in that Eat Pray Love movie.
Hmm.
It's a small place. It's a really small place, maybe 4 tables or 6 tables or something. They have all of two pizzas.
Hmm.
That's it. No toppings in terms of, all your oregano and all, nothing. It's just two pizzas. You have a huge queue out of it,
Hmm.
outside it again because of Eat Pray Love. But it was really nice. I mean, I thought, but
Hmm.
we were there, so I'm like, of course, if you're there, you have to have it in one of the meals. We didn't get place to sit inside, so we just took the box and we came out and had it. It was so juicy, but then there is something Italian cheese is Italian cheese, man. It's really, really good. I remember that being one of my, like, if I remember my pizza memories, this will definitely one of it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Tell me one thing. So, like, how in India you have many of these eating out of the same large, like community eating kind of thing, where you have a large plate and all sit together and eat in weddings, in festivals. We have that in a few communities in India or a few festivals in India. Did you see that in any other place during a travel? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
hmm,
So I did, in fact, in Jordan itself.
hmm,
So it was an interesting thing because I was we actually took a detour, right? We landed at Amman and went to a small city called Mataba, very close to Amman. Beautiful. I mean, maybe it's much more special to me because one of the earliest trips had just started traveling, so it's a lot more etched in the memory that again, they're small town, and it's one of the cities which is Christian dominated, at least back then, right? And they have these cathedrals and churches as well. And so we ended up, we went to a Jordanian family's house. We were in, they invited us, and it was so amazing because, again, as I said, the kind of people that you meet, and that was one of the first trips, and the experience that and the memories that it created. I think that in a way made me travel more. For example, I had the experiences been other way around, probably I would
yeah.
not, you know
So
you know
Jordan was the kida that get
Exactly,
called to
yeah.
your
And,
head.
and amongst every other thing, as I said, it's the food and the people that really left an impression. So this very 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 nice, I mean, beautiful Jordanian family, right? I mean, this girl, we met, and she had, her siblings. We had a younger brother. I still remember his name, Ilyas. Very cute little kid. Always,
It's
it
10
was
years back.
yeah,
Wow,
and
you still
he was like
remember.
showing us around that, you go there, and they're very very nice, super friendly. When went to their house, and then the mother, she was a Syrian Christian, and this girl's father, he was from Jordan itself, and he was one of the forest rangers. So we went to the house, and then they said that they would be making mansaf. Mansaf is now, in a way, you can call it as a national dish of Jordan. So mansaf is essentially your rice, which is on the base of a bread, a very flat bread, like a Somali roti, like it's like a rice, and then you have dried yogurt used to make either chicken or lamb, predominantly chicken, right? So that's how it is cooked, and then it uses a huge plate on which the base is your entire, that bread is put on it,
Hmm.
thin
Hmm.
bread. Then you put layers of rice and meat, which is cooked together, but then it's separated. That's how it's made, right? So it's cooked basically in fermented dried yogurt. So it has this.
Oh,
So, and then it's a big plate, and that's how mansaf is supposed to be. It's like a community food, so everybody eats from that one big plate, right?
how brilliant.
So we were, and they were so nice, they were so amazing. They invite us to the kitchen, and the mother, and she called her sister also. They both were making this because it's a big meal preparation, and we also joined them. I mean, we didn't do anything, right? We just wanted to ensure that we don't
Just be a part of the whole thing.
yeah, I think we just, observing and watching them prepare it, and then lay it down on that plate, and it looked so beautiful. And and then everybody came together, right? The dad also came back from his work, and all the siblings and all of us were sitting around on a table and eating
Ah.
from that same plate, right? So you eat it using your hands, and
Hmm.
everybody's like, with the rice and the meat, and a bit of bread, and you're so amazing, it's so tasty. And I think more than the food, it was this whole feeling that we were strangers practically, right? And they were so, I mean, they trusted us, like, they just called us to
Correct. Calling you home is like the
and
like
yeah,
max trust
exactly.
possible.
And then, and actually they made us feel like a part of their family. That's the whole part. It's not that, you'll be called as a guest, you're treated as, like, like, we can just roam around in the house, and then we had teas, and then after the meal was done, then we all went out and we went to have shisha. So, we just
Ah,
walked,
it's a big thing there, yeah.
yeah, and then strolling around, and
What a perfect day, man.
and that was the first day. Imagine, first day in Jordan. That's how it went. But yeah, and I think that's the community meal. It was super amazing, and I don't think it is being served a lot in even in the restaurant. It's like one of those home meals that we talked
Home
about,
things.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
it is supposed to be had in large quantities. There was also a story that it's one of the dish that came from the Bedouins, and with these old tribes and all. So when there were dispute and there was reconciliation between the tribes, then to celebrate or for the reconciliation, mansaf was cooked. So people who had probably previously fought would then come together and eat from the same plate.
Hi, Chara will start off with this
And that was the
brotherhood.
intention.
Wow.
That's how it started. So yeah.
Yeah, the thought behind it itself is so cool. Amazing. Many of these countries, actually, I would say, probably the Arabic countries, a lot of these countries, they believe that cooking a large quantity shows their warmth towards their guests. So even when they serve, it's never served like they never serve one piece and three pieces and all that. It's always a like heap of things. It's
Mhm.
always like 20 things served all at one time. It's never first course only, then second course, then third course. Everything we put on the table in the front of you, just to show that you're welcome. It's to show the warmth that they have towards their visitors and guests and all that. I think that's very nice, very sweet and warm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole feeling of the hospitality that we talk about, right?
Mm,
They like to share, right? I mean,
yeah,
probably that's how their own local cultures and societies have developed, right? It's more,
correct,
if you see to these places, and especially the ones, if which have roots from a tribal background, or let's say,
correct.
these clans that you have, right? So it's a community, right? So everybody stays together, help each other, so naturally they would be eating together as well, right? And
Yeah,
that reflects in their behavior. They
that'll
would.
probably be one of the highlights, the eating together part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the highlight. And I think true for most of the places also. But you'll also realize that whoever is serving you food or is making it, they really like it. They enjoy doing it, right? They don't
Hmm.
think of it that it's their profession or they have to make money, right? I mean, and across places, not just across the Middle East region, but let's say in Southeast Asia or even South America, like you end up having a meal, and it's a local place, right? So the one who is actually making it, it's either a lady, or so there's a whole family meal cooking it all. And when they see you, right, either they ask you how did you like it, and when they see you eating, and they're naturally happy, right? They
Happy,
okay,
yeah. Hmm.
and that's the best thing, right? I mean, it means that they really enjoy making it, and they really enjoy if you like it, right?
Serving it to you and if you appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing. That's a feeling which you typically get mostly because of food only.
100%, yeah. So even when I travel, no, I also always ask, what is really popular in this place. This is even for beverages for me. So if I go to Scotland, I have to have the scotch. If I go to Munich, I have to have the beer. Same way, I just loved all the Turkish breakfast that was there.
Mm.
Unbelievably, I mean, elaborate with all their breads. Really good. Their desserts. Oh my God, their desserts were so good. You go to Naples, you have to have that pizza. So having the local food with the local folks around is a so important part of a travel experience altogether.
Yeah,
Awesome. Wow, I really think we can go on and on about this on this topic.
I
Oh
can
man,
go I can go on and on and on, but then it's
I will never. I do not have an end time at all.
yeah.
Tell me. So now, as I think we've spoken so much about food, so much about food, what has been your favorite street food stories?
Mm, I think one incident, not an incident, but story probably would be in Vietnam. So I remember I landed in Vietnam. So I had to first from India landed in Hanoi, and then took a flight straight away from there to Da Nang, right?
Hmm.
And by the time I reached and checked in, it was pretty late, right? It was almost sort of midnight, past midnight, and I was super hungry, and I didn't know what to, like, where can I go, what to order. and
Hmm.
almost everything was shut down because I was seeing, in the cab from the airport going to the Airbnb, that was, I couldn't find anything. So I just started walking, and said maybe I could find something. And I, I must have walked for like half an hour, and I couldn't find. Suddenly, I could see some lights, some far off, and I just went there, and it was open, right? And it was like that typical place where there were these mostly youngsters sitting, having, sipping beer and having some food
Hmm.
out there. So I just went there and I sat and I asked them, and they didn't speak English, lots of, broken. I said, are you guys open, close? So I,
Hmm.
from what I remember, he suddenly said, that like sort of a last order or something, and then we'll probably will, you can sit here, but we will not be serving. So, and then I looked at the menu and it was all in Vietnamese, so I couldn't understand anything. And there was no pictures and all, of
Hmm.
course. And I just looked around on my table, and I said that, so I just pointed out, you bring this and you bring this. And it was like, again, way past midnight, and I had no expectation. I was like, okay, you give me anything which I can eat, and probably, because typically when I'm planning for meals, right, I know that there is only as much I can eat, so I have to probably, figure out
Hmm.
where to go, what to eat, etc., so that you at least end up having good meal. This was something which I was like, unexpected. And again, this typical setting, like by the roadside, there's no sort of a proper restaurant. Very on a small stool you sit, and you have
Yeah.
scooters passing,
Vietnam tiny stools is like a thing.
and
Hmm.
you have these scooters passing by and everything. You just sit there,
Hmm.
and then the guy brought this thing. It was I think some sort of a fried rice, which is seafood, and some noodles as well, right?
Hmm.
And it was amazing. It was like fantastic. I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I even thinking? Like, just go and sit anywhere and that's the food. And I was like, in my broken English, or the way I wanted to sort of communicate, I said, guy, you sort of saved me today, because I would have like starved. And again, super friendly, amazing. The guy who served, and he was so happy, and I had that meal. So yeah, I think that's been the street food experience story so far.
Yeah.
I just walked in anywhere, just sat there, and suddenly, I and there's another similar story in Vietnam only. And I was in this one city called Hue, which is somewhere in between north and south. And I ended up walking to a local market there, not knowing what to do, and I was not, just said maybe we'll just go and have food there. And I ended up in one of those stalls inside, inside the market. It's a closed market. There are these women who sell different sort of things. As I said, they have this broth boiling in
Hmm.
one place, and they have some noodles or rice, and there's some condiment. And I just went and sat there, and I told that to just basically pointed out to the food which was displayed, that give me this. And I was eating, and I just looked upwards, and then they had this. She had this photo, and
Hmm.
and that lady had a photo with Anthony Bourdain.
Ah.
Yeah. And it was written that, this is so it was written that I'm the, not I'm the, but like the Anthony Bourdain lady from Parts Unknown. Then I went back and watched the episode, and it was the same woman who was, was featured in that episode.
Check it out. Wow.
At exactly the same place where Bourdain ate. So I was like, wow, amazing. Like, maybe I have the same,
You
look,
can find
look
just
of
like how he
finding,
finds.
look of finding those places where he probably would end up going. So yeah.
Nice, nice. Vietnam has a crazy vegan movement. This is one country where I have had a lot of local food. I could go to the markets and get a lot
Hmm.
of tofu. But
Hmm.
I've done a lot of local eating in Vietnam. I loved it. So I was asking you, have you ever dined in a Michelin star place?
So I went to a far place in Vietnam only, in Hanoi.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
again, late at night, small place. I just ended up there. Amazing far. Like that really increased my appreciation for that food. Right, that place has now gotten into Michelin. So probably
Oh.
I had it before it became a Michelin star. I was seeing somewhere online that now they are a Michelin star, and it's a very small place, because you have this thing, right, in Southeast Asia also, like places in Thailand and all, which are very small places, but they are Michelin star.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
looks like a street food thing, but they are Michelin star. So this is one of those places, right? So maybe not when I went there, but now it has.
Now it has.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. In Hanoi, we had pizza in a place called Pizza 4 Piece or 4 Piece Pizza, whatever the name. 4P
Hmm.
pizza.
Hmm.
Now it's become a rage in Bangalore. This place has opened up and it's been, I think, 6 months or 8 months, and you don't get place to sit.
Oh, wow.
It's become a rage in Bangalore. It's a Vietnam based one, and
Is it really
the
good?
other it's really worth it.
Hmm.
Like it's 100% worth the hype. So if you come to Bangalore and you want to have great pizza, book this place well in advance. It's like
Oh.
that. You have to really book it well in advance.
Hmm.
Or if you're on a weekday, if you're here, and then you can try and walk in. But you Friday, Saturday, Sunday, impossible to get a place to sit there. It's like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, Bangalore has some of these places coming up. I think I was reading. There's some list also that came up
Yes,
from
yes, yes. I mean,
I think there
just the
was
recent list.
Naru's Noodle Bar.
Naru, you'll
I've heard
never
that
get a
you don't
place
get
to sit.
reservation there. Like,
Yeah, you just don't. Yeah,
wow.
you
I
need
never imagined that
contacts.
there would be places in India like that, but it's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Fabulous, man, Sohail. So many stories. So many stories. I mean, there are historical stories, personal anecdotes. So many things that come out just out of having love for food, and in your case, coffee as well.
Yeah.
Become a coffee connoisseur. Yeah, then we'll do a Coffees of the World episode with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're halfway there, or I mean, in my opinion, you're there. So which are the other countries that you still want to explore for coffee purpose?
Mm, for coffee, definitely go to Brazil.
Hmm.
So I've had coffees from these places, like, either you find it somewhere else,
Hmm.
in the third country, or if somebody goes and travel. But South America also, right? Both Colombia, Brazil, Guatemala, they have good coffee. So maybe if I end up going there, that's one. Uh, Italy, I mean, Italy, these guys love
Espresso.
espresso, so
Yeah.
probably they would be having some good coffees to drink there. So that Italy is also one place, because I haven't been there.
Hmm.
I've been always sort of delaying it for future, but one day. Africa, I've had Ethiopian, Kenyan. I think
They list as the top ones
they
anywhere.
stand out, right?
Hmm.
Indonesia, of course, one of the ones already
You
had.
had the Kopi Luwak
Oh
in
no,
Indonesia.
Kopi Luwak, I think it's one of those hype which is out there, right? I think it's been abusing
I
it.
had it, and I was not. I'm not a coffee person at all. So I have cold coffee. I don't have hot coffee as such.
Hmm.
The story behind a Kopi Luwak is not something that really appetized me,
Yeah.
but we still had it. We still tried it. It was
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I haven't had it because, of course, it's also expensive by the nature of it. And when
Mm.
I've spoken to people who are really the ones who like coffee, they said it's not good. Also, actually, nothing tastes. It just is because of the story that has been built up. It has
Exactly.
become
Yeah.
popular. So yeah, that's there. What Yemen, as I mentioned, right? I haven't got a chance to have Yemen coffee. I really love to have coffee from Yemen.
I
They
hope
do,
you
they
can
do
go at one day as well.
Yeah, if I can go, definitely. But they do export it. I mean, I don't know
Mm.
the situation now, but they used to export it, and you can find it in US in some
Okay.
of the places. I mean, they have these specialty coffees
Mm.
importers who have done that. But I'm assuming it would be again very expensive, because they're importing from so far. But I
Yeah.
think Yemen coffee would be one that I would love to have. Yeah, that's pretty
Ah,
much.
that's not many, yeah. So you're definitely on the other side of the halfway mark in becoming a coffee connoisseur. You only few
Yeah,
countries
yeah.
left. So
Yes,
that's for the future. So Hail, so keep that in your radar.
absolutely.
I had a lovely time podcasting with you, man. So many stories. You are like a storybook, in yourself, in all in being foodies. I hope you had a good time as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Loved it. Loved the conversation.
Thank you so much, Sohail. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing the pictures, and I'll be putting a lot of those pictures in our blog and our Instagram page, Misadventures of a Sneaker. Thank you so much, and we'll hope to see you again soon with coffee.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
You know what? I remember a statement that Matt Preston from the MasterChef Australia fame made at a literature festival that I went to. He said that in addition to the regular food senses that we have, which is spicy, sweet, and all of that, there should be one more added, and that is memory. Because tasting something often transports you back in time, and the flavor of what you're eating can be affected by the memories of when you experienced first time eating the dish. So, this came back rushing to me because so much of what we've spoken today took me back in time to my vacations and all the food, the yummy food that I've had during the trips. And the photographs of all the food dishes that Sohail shared with me is added to this FOMO. Well, we'll upload a bunch of these photographs on our Substack and Instagram page. So, do head over there and check them out. We are called Misadventures of a Sneaker everywhere. Also, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, would you like to support our team by buying us a coffee? If yes, you could head over to our show notes and click on support to contribute any amount you'd like. It'll be a huge morale booster for us. Thank you and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.